Is everybody ready to go? Yeah, we got that. I'm going to go ahead and call to order the January 17th, 2012 City Council meeting. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Kenyon.
Here.
Petty.
Here.
Tennant.
Here.
Farrell.
Here.
Adams. Here. Lewis. Here. Gray. Here. Boudreaux. Here. Mayor Jordan.
Here. Would you join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under the first order of business this evening, under the mayor's announcements, proclamations, and recognitions, we have the 2012 Martin Luther King Brotherhood Award presentation to be given by our city attorney, Kit Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. It's been my honor for every Martin Luther King Day since I became Fayetteville City Attorney in March of 2001 to select a City of Fayetteville employee to receive the Dr. Martin Luther King Brotherhood Award. The 10 previous recipients all exemplified Dr. King's message of equality, justice, and brotherhood. This year's recipient has worked for the City of Fayetteville and served the citizens of Fayetteville for almost 2 decades. She has had a unique role in city government, working directly for the mayor. Now, since the citizens of Fayetteville changed our form of government to mayor council in 1992, Fayetteville has been led by 3 mayors. I've seen all of them in action. These mayors campaigned against each other and did not agree on a tremendous number of issues. Occasionally, they might have even disagreed. But all 3 mayors, Fred Hanna, Dan Cootie, and Lionel Jordan, did agree on one thing, that the mayor's office simply would not function in the best interests of the citizens of Fayetteville without Lana Broyles as the mayor's office administrator. Lana is quietly competent in managing the office, consistently excellent in responding to citizen communications, and always reliable in preparing mayoral proclamations and letters, arranging the mayor's travel plans, and managing the mayor's busy schedule. On top of all that, Lana spearheads and organizes 3 employee potluck luncheons every year to help foster better morale and communication up and down the line between all city employees and officials. Now, last year after the devastating Joplin tornado, Lana organized a fun Pie in the City Officials Face fundraiser that raised over $500 as employees gleefully contributed to win the right to put a pie in somebody's face. This $500 went to the Joplin School District to help them after that tornado. Lana is fairly shy and never seeks out the limelight, but she still shines radiantly as she embodies and encourages friendliness and equality and brother and sisterhood throughout our city government. Lana Broyles is a worthy recipient of the 2012 City of Fayetteville Dr. Martin Luther King Brotherhood Award, which I will give to her now.
And there she goes. I will tell you this, as the mayor of this office, Lana Broyles is a tremendous assistant. Not only that, she's a good friend, and she's actually a good counselor for the mayor. So she was so deserving of this award. Thank you, Kit. Okay, next on the agenda we have, tonight I would like to introduce Mr. Bob Wright with Cruz & Associates, who are the primary sponsors of the Arkansas Business Distinction Cities Award. Bob?
Mayor, Nathan, please.
Good evening. I'm Nathan Rutledge, and this is Bob Wright. And on behalf of the public finance company Cruz & Associates and First Security Bancorp, we're excited to be here and honored to have the opportunity to present the city of Fayetteville with the first ever Arkansas Business City of Distinction Award for Quality of Life. For those of you that aren't aware, Arkansas Business, you probably are aware that Arkansas Business has several awards that over the years they've created to honor different Arkansas people, entities, organizations, what have you. And they decided this year that it would be a great idea to come up with a way to honor the cities of Arkansas that are doing things that make them stand out, doing the things that create them as leaders and visionaries in Arkansas cities and allow them to lead other cities in the different tasks and different ways to excel. Just like Arkansas Business always does, they do a great job. And if you hadn't seen the publication, we were a few short. We normally try to bring several, but we were running low. Weren't able to get everyone one, but they did a great job with the publication. If you look at the other cities in there, you're definitely the cream of the crop in Arkansas with everything that you're doing. The Fayetteville Forward program that was recognized and was one of the main reasons that Fayetteville was recognized for quality of life is a great show of teamwork. It's a great show of a community coming together, everyone stepping up. Buying local is huge. Local businesses, local communities, and that's the way you support each other. And for Bob and I, we're excited to have the opportunity to go around to these Arkansas cities that have won these awards, because it's fun for us to get out and to get to see the communities that we do business with, get to see them be rewarded for their hard work, and we're honored to be here tonight. I'm going to pass it over to Bob now.
Thank you, Nathan. Mayor, City Council, thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. I am Bob Wright, Senior Managing Director, Cruz & Associates, and it is an honor to be here tonight. As I spoke with the mayor last week down at the Arkansas Municipal League Conference, he was, and I told him we wanted to come up here and present to you in person and present to those city council members and your public this award. It's an honor to win this award, the Quality of Life Award throughout the state of Arkansas. This is the first annual, but there were many cities that were vying for this award. After we presented this in front of over 1,000 of your constituents, and other mayors and city council members down in Little Rock, many mayors and other people came up to me and was like, how do we get this submitted for next year? What do we need to do to try to get recognized? I think they all realize that this is something that you can go out and show your citizens. Look at the hard work we're doing for you. Look at the initiatives we've put forward. Look at for example, the Fayetteville Forward Economic Accountability Council that the mayor put together back in '09 to help move some of these initiatives forward. So I think that the competition is going to be fierce next year, but you were by far and away chosen as Quality of Life this year. We are honored to be here and congratulate you on this award. Mayor, I'd like to come up and give this to you. Thank you all very much, and that should be a good segue into your city of
Absolutely.
your next report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That was some fierce competition we were up against this year, but we're pretty fierce people around here, so thank you all. Next on the agenda is the Mayor's State of the City Address, the annual address that's given by the Mayor. There were so many accomplishments in 2011, and I was so very proud and excited for this city and the work that they have done. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we have done and where we're going. So I will have certain points I will bring to your attention as we read through this. So to start, ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, and my fellow citizens of Fayetteville. One of my favorite authors, Ralph Waldo Emerson, wrote, "This time, like all times, is a very good one, if we but know what to do with it." We have known what to do with it. We have worked together to take care of public business, to wisely manage our resources, to provide essential services, to assure a vibrant community, and to build a brighter future for all of the people of Fayetteville. I'm pleased to report tonight that the state of our city is sound. 3 years ago this week, when I reported on the state of the city, I knew then we were facing tough economic times and reduced revenues. I did not know that in less than a week we would have a record ice storm with millions of dollars in damage and cleanup costs. Together, we weathered that storm and revealed the heart of a caring community that helped and looked out for each other. As a result of that experience, we also developed and adopted the city's first practical emergency management and operations plan to be better prepared for any future events. And we had implemented an automated city alert system for timely warnings to our residents. Although we were spared the devastation of the tornadoes that directly affected neighboring communities, unexpected weather events last year presented significant challenges to our operations and service to our citizens. In February, we experienced a record 22-inch snowfall and record minus 18-degree temperatures. Our crews worked 24/7 to make transportation safe and to repair broken water mains, and we provided generators and emergency shelters for those at risk. In April, we had record rainfall and flooding. This resulted in an additional 178 service requests and several major projects that included replacing culverts and drainage structure. The City Council acted quickly to transfer funds from the various projects to address the long-term drainage needs of the city. These months of infrastructure repairs were not anticipated in the 2011 budget, but we weathered the unexpected tribulations practically, logically, and financially with flying colors. And for that, I thank the fine work of our excellent City of Fayetteville staff. To them, we owe much of our city's civic successes. In May, Joplin was hit by a catastrophic tornado. Our residents generously responded with donations of food, clothing, and water. Our firefighters and police officers volunteered to participate in the rescue and recovery operations. In July and August came the heat wave, and we saw not one, but 12 high-temperature records broken, each over 100 degrees. We provided cooling stations in various parts of the city for public health safety and repaired the many water and sewer pipes damaged by shifting soils. Our response again was timely, and it included additional infrastructure improvements that also were not anticipated in our 2011 budget. But we know that the true test of a community does not occur when all is going well. Our true character is revealed by the values we display and the leadership we provide when we are faced with unexpected challenges. Together, we met that test and passed with honors. First thing I want to talk about tonight is sound financial management. Understand the need for fiscal responsibility in these economic times, and we have had to make some tough choices. We forecasted the 2011 general fund operating expense budget in 2011 to be $33,800,000, down from $35,800,000 in 2009. Because of local, state, and national declines in the economy, the city was forced to address declining sales tax revenues and increases in unavoidable expense categories such as lofty retirement and insurance cost, fuel, and other items. We provided leadership during this time, and we cut over $2 million in city operating expenses. Exercising due diligence and using common sense during the past 3 years, we have avoided wholesale layoffs and maintained public services without raising taxes. We have reduced the number of contracts with out-of-state consultants. We have initiated a lean government program that helps us serve as good stewards of taxpayer dollars by increasing efficiency and reducing the future need for additional personnel. The number of budgeted employee positions in 2011 was reduced by more than 20 compared with 2008. And we actually filled 32 fewer positions than were budgeted. I am mindful of the additional burden these cost-cutting measures placed on our employees to provide services our citizens expect and deserve. Accordingly, I will soon bring to the council a salary plan to reward and retain our dedicated city employees who have shouldered the major burden of our balanced budget for 3 years without a raise. Addressing that issue is my primary goal for this year because they have earned it and because it's the right thing to do. I'm pleased to report that while we had budgeted for the use of reserve funds this year, we met a balanced general fund budget for 2011 and did not require the use of any reserved funds. This makes 2 years in a row in which the City of Fayetteville, through sound fiscal responsibility, has not had to draw upon our reserved funds to operate our city. Consequently, at the end of 2011 budget year, the city's general fund reserves will be at or above the amount they were when I took office 3 years ago. And in these tough economic times of recession in our nation, that gives us all much of which to be proud. As a result of the outstanding work of our finance and budget staff, the city was again awarded a Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for its 2011 budget and a Certificate of Advancement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Governmental Financial Officers Association. These budgetary successes have been the result of an excellent working relationship between my administration and the City Council. We have not been burdened by the divisive party politics that lead to gridlock or by anyone seeking personal, political, or financial advantage. We have embraced civility and fostered cooperation because we all share the commitment to good government for our community and to excellent services for our citizens. On October the 10th, the people of Fayetteville expressed their confidence by overwhelmingly approving renewal of the existing 1-cent sales tax used for continuing Fayetteville operations and capital improvements. The next point I want to talk about tonight is essential services. No government function is more important than assuring the public safety of our citizens. And I commend the courage and commitment of our dedicated police officers, firefighters, and emergency medical technicians. Fire Chief David Dayringer led the efforts to establish our city's first comprehensive emergency management plan. Under his leadership, we have had enhanced firefighter training for all personnel and improved communication and morale through the collaborative labor management process he has implemented. Completion of the Canterbury water tank significantly improved water pressure and fire protection for over 2,000 homes and businesses and preserved the city's fire insurance rating. In addition, the city has achieved an improved insurance rating for building safety. Through savings and grants, the City of Fayetteville invested in a $7.1 million simulcast radio system to replace the outdated and failing radio system used by our public works, police, and fire personnel to help in keeping the people and structures of Fayetteville safe. For the first time, it provides us with the widest and most comprehensive citywide coverage to better coordinate emergencies and assist the public in every part of our city. The radio project will better protect the lives and properties of the residents by expanding coverage to new areas of development, improving existing coverage areas, resulting in quicker response times improving the safety of our first responders, and linking the city directly with the state emergency management system. Our agreement with the Washington County Regional Ambulance Authority has been renewed for 5 more years at no additional cost. The Fayetteville Police Department has met 95% of the applicable standards for certification by the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies and anticipates full certification by the end of this year. This will help assure that our police force is a best-in-class operation and strengthens agency accountability. The City Council revised and adopted the Master Street Plan. Traffic safety has improved with completion of the Mount Comfort Road project. Progress continues on the planned improvements to Crossover Road, Huntsville Road, Garland Avenue, and Cato Springs Road that will enhance transportation options and safety. Sadly, despite our attention to worker safety, we were reminded this year how fragile life can be when our friend and fellow city employee Jackie Looper was killed on the job when hit by a motorist. The next point I want to bring out tonight is our economic development and good jobs. In my first State of the City address 3 years ago, I promised we will have within 90 days an economic and community development strategy that considers support for existing small businesses as well as nurturing new opportunities. And together we will work to make it a reality. A slow national economy is no excuse for inaction, but an opportunity for us to move quickly and prepare now for our shared future. That year we instituted Fayetteville Forward Process, in which every resident had an opportunity to contribute ideas for both goals and strategies for future community and economic development, and those ideas have driven our policies. Action groups and the Fayetteville Forward Economic Accountability Council have continued to meet and make the vision a reality. It has paid off for our community. In the last 3 years, Fayetteville led the way for Arkansas at number 15 in Forbes' annual list of top 100 metropolitan areas in the nation for businesses and careers. Forbes also ranked Fayetteville as number 2 among best cities for recession recovery and number 4 among best places for business and careers in the nation. Business Week included us among the best small cities for startups, and CNN Money ranked Fayetteville number 13 on its list of best places to launch a small business startup. Builder Magazine ranked us number 9 for healthiest housing markets, and Area Development Magazine listed us in the top 100 leading locations for 2011. Milken Institute review lists the Fayetteville metropolitan area as 23rd best performing in the nation on job creation. We've also been honored with the Innovative Community Development Program Award from the Arkansas Community Development Society and the Southern Growth Policies Board 2010 Innovator Award for leading Fayetteville forward. In 2009, I said my first and immediate goal will be to do everything possible to secure and support the establishment of a satellite campus of the University of Arkansas Medical School and a regional trauma center in Fayetteville. The UAMS Northwest Campus is now a reality and an overwhelming success. In November, Washington Regional Medical Center submitted a request for designation as a Level 2 trauma center to provide the highest level of emergency care for patients in Northwest Arkansas, and state approval is expected by the summer. In 2010, I pledged that my top priority for that year was to secure funding for establishing a Green Jobs Training Center of Excellence in Fayetteville, to put people back to work in the jobs of tomorrow that pay a living wage. An active partnership among the city administration, the City Council, the University of Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas Community College, the Northwest Arkansas Labor Council, and the Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce, working with Governor Beebe and the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, made that a reality. We successfully secured state and federal funding, and our partnership with the Northwest Arkansas Community College resulted in a Green Jobs Training Center of Excellence that provides successful and now that the initial grant funding has ended will be expanded with mobile training and education throughout the region. Working with the Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce Development Team and the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, we have supported the development of good-paying manufacturing jobs for our residents. Hard economic times left Superior Industries forced to significantly reduce jobs. Yet through Superior's determination and hard work, they have not only been able to regain the jobs lost, but to also regain additional jobs for Fayetteville. Arkansas Power Electronics International now has more than 31 research and production employees at its new facility at the Arkansas Technology Research Park. Delta Group Electronics opened in Fayetteville a new manufacturing facility with a projected 125 high-paying jobs in its 36,000 square foot facility over the next 2 years. Pinnacle Foods is scheduled to expand its operations in Fayetteville, and Tyson's Foods is close to finishing a $7 million line expansion in Fayetteville that will add 60 jobs. Fayetteville has not only retained all of our existing manufacturing jobs, we have added significant new manufacturing jobs to our local economy. And the Arkansas Economic Development Commission awarded $1.5 million to Fayetteville companies to assist us in retaining, expanding, and generating new jobs in Fayetteville. We've continued the successful Find It in Fayetteville campaign to support local businesses. We have created a How to Do Business in Fayetteville handbook for new and existing businesses. The Creative Economy Group and the Convention and Visitors Bureau made First Thursdays and last night's successful arts events. New festivals such as the Block Party, Bicycle Fayetteville Days, and the Artini Art Festival highlighted the year. Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue was another smashing success, bringing residents and visitors from all over the country to our community, spending money and raising funds for nonprofits. And we began Fayetteville's business registry and licensing program. During 2011, over 900 new jobs were added to the local economy. The private investment of $7 million of remodeling of 200 rooms and downtown meeting space at the former Cosmopolitan Hotel should increase the number of conference and convention visitors to our city. Economic prophecy is an uncertain art, but I predict even better times ahead for Fayetteville's successful economy and increased opportunities for all of our residents. Next point I want to bring out tonight is building community. Fewer places in the world will you find a stronger community than Fayetteville. I love this city, and I know you do too. That has become our city's rally call, but it isn't a well-kept secret. Fayetteville is consistently in the top national list for our community, on top of national list for our community. Forbes named Fayetteville number 7 in the nation as a top college sports town. Kiplinger also ranked Fayetteville 7th in the nation in a ranking of best places to live, work, and play. Relocate America this year listed us in the top 100 places to live in the United States. CNN Money named Fayetteville as 15th in the nation as a best place to retire. And Retire Lifestyles magazine named Fayetteville as one of 11 Southern retirement hotspots. Arkansas Business awarded Fayetteville honorable mention in the Quality of Life category. The people of Fayetteville again made us an Arkansas Volunteer Community of the Year with over 30,000 volunteers logging 600,000 hours of volunteer work. And Keep Arkansas Beautiful had to come up with a whole new award for environmental and beautification excellence due to Fayetteville's winning the Shine Award 3 years in a row. American Bloom awarded Fayetteville an Environmental Awareness Award and the 4 Blooms Award. And that organization will be holding its 2012 annual meeting in our city to share our story with communities throughout the nation. The nationally recognized Fayetteville Public Library was named the best library in Northwest Arkansas by reader polls in both Cityscapes, Metro Monthly Magazine, and the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. In April, USA Today ranked our library among 10 great places to take a library tour. That included the Library of Congress, the New York Public Library, and others in Boston, Seattle, Denver, and Chicago. There are now more than 64,000 registered users, and the circulation has surpassed 1.1 million items this year. To meet the tremendous growth of teen use of library resources, the new Teen Library was dedicated and opened in June. We are fortunate to have this fine facility in our community, a knowledge resource open to every resident without charge. Federal public schools are the best in the state and were named the top 10 in the United States in technology by the National School Boards Association. Fayetteville High School has been named to Newsweek's Best U.S. High School list. Ramey Junior High School was designated one of the 10 breakthrough schools in the nation by the National Association of Secondary School Principals. 23 students were named National Merit Scholarship semifinalists, more than any other school in Arkansas. And the Connotations Literary Magazine won national awards for Columbia Scholastic Press and the National Council of Teachers of English. The debate team and the choir won state awards, and the band performed at Carnegie Hall in New York. State championships were won in Fayetteville in football, basketball, golf, cheerleading, and track. Students, students planted community gardens, green teams improved the environment, and the student council raised awareness and funds for the homeless. Progress continued on construction of the new high school campus, and both Butterfield Trail and Happy Hollow are LEED certified by the U.S. Green Building Council. The University of Arkansas, an essential part of our community, continues to grow with a record 23,199 students, and to be ranked nationally for quality of academic programs, receiving the highest classification awarded to colleges across the U.S. by Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching. In addition, it is one of the best educational bargains in the nation, a fact recognized this month when it again was named one of the 100 best values in public colleges by Kiplinger Personal Finance. The relationship between town and gown has never been stronger as we work to share the benefits of cooperation on projects ranging from the expansion of the Walton Arts Center to expansion of the trail system to the exciting developments at the Arkansas Research and Technology Park. We developed and launched the Community Link, an innovative online resource for community-wide engagement, collaboration, innovation, and volunteer management that will increase the ability for everyone in Fayetteville to get further connected with the community and its diverse opportunities for civic engagement. The Community Link is a national model of an effective, interactive resource for a whole community and all of its residents. This Community Link has been a further success in connecting our city and building community by providing the link to information about what is going on in Fayetteville and how you can help and get involved. In fact, I expect the counter on Community Link will register 200,000 visits before February. Our traditional sense of community is enhanced by the continued growth of the Fayetteville Farmers Market, now operating 4 days a week and in 3 locations. It was ranked number 5 nationally this year in the large market category in America's Favorite Farmers Markets Contest, hosted by the American Farmland Trust. Our trail system expanded in 2011 with completion of the Frisco Trail and the Oak Ridge Trail and a garden at Mud Creek Trailhead. Work is continuing on the Clear Creek Trail, Lake Fayetteville Trail, the Town Branch Trail, and the Meadow Valley Trail, a 2.3-mile extension west from Skull Creek Trail to the U of A farm and past I-540 to connect with new bike lanes on Mount Comfort Road. Also, the addition of sidewalks and sidewalk improvements continue to be a top priority of my administration, and that commitment will continue through 2012. The Federal Trails Coordinator is also the chairman of the Northwest Arkansas Active Transportation Committee, providing instrumental leadership in coordinating the design, funding, and now implementing the 36-mile Razorback Regional Greenway. Expanded mass transit will be a part of our future transportation system. We have continued our partnership with Razorback Transit with free transportation for city residents, and ridership has increased in the Ozark Regional Trail transit routes, resulting in the 2011 Award of Achievement from the Federal Transit Administration for the highest percentage growth in transit passenger ridership in Arkansas. With the addition of the 1.25 miles of bike lanes on Mount Comfort Road for a total of 8.84 miles of bike lanes, we enhanced our position as the second Arkansas city to be named a bicycle-friendly community by the League of American Bicyclists. 6 miles are planned for this year. We have also honored our roots. In 2011, we completed a history project of scanning the historic pictures owned by the city so that they, along with the government channel history minutes, can be placed on accessfayetteville.org in a new federal history section of the city website. The federal government channel was awarded 3 statewide honors for historic digital excellence by the Arkansas Old State House Museum in Little Rock. The planning department also donated hundreds of local photographs to Project Fayetteville, the digital history project at the Fayetteville Public Library. A Fayetteville Hall of History was created on the 3rd floor of City Hall, and I invite you to view the exhibit after tonight's meeting. During the coming year, I will support, along with Alderman Tennant, the Fayetteville Advertising and Promotion Commission, with the Fayetteville Advertising Promotion Commission to acquire the historic 1911 post office in the center of the downtown square and explore the possibility of a Fayetteville museum and studio spaces for local artists. There are several ways Fayetteville is further getting socially connected and partnerships are flourishing. The city worked with Cox Communication to implement free Wi-Fi on the historic downtown square, which has benefited farmers market events, technical demonstrations, and overall community connections. The town square has long been an essential public forum and gathering place and is now linked to the world. Over 9,000 people attended the 6 Gully Park summer concerts last year, and the Dive-In movie series sponsored by the Fayetteville Firefighters Association and organized by our Parks and Recreation Department was a great success with over 1,600 people attending the 4 movies at Wilson Park Pool. Community is also built on a communal sense of caring about the community, its environment, and all who live in it. Last year, the Fayetteville Animal Shelter placement record was again broken by adoption of 2,183 pets in new homes, and the Community Service Division's work with the Rangers Pantry and the contributions from the public allowed for the distribution of 6.6 tons of pet food last year, allowing people the financial ability to keep their beloved pets in their home. The Housing Rehabilitation Program completed 18 projects, and Festival brought hundreds of people to the historic downtown square to recognize and celebrate inclusion, and was organized by multiple partners in an inclusive manner to highlight the diverse art and culture of our region. The city of Fayetteville has provided financial support for the Senior Center, Big Brothers and Big Sisters Mentoring Program, the Fayetteville Boys and Girls Club, Life Source International Day Camp, Lifestyles, Fayetteville Free Clinic, Peace at Home Family Shelter, Seven Hills Homeless Shelter, the Illinois Watershed Project, Arts Live Theater, the Walton Arts Center, and other organizations that contribute to building our community with inclusive and lasting impact. To answer the decades-long call for a municipal parking deck in Fayetteville's entertainment district, we addressed the needs head-on, made several changes requested by patrons, and after the initiation of funding resource for the deck from revenues gained from existing parking in the city-owned lots, we have moved forward on that commitment to build a municipal parking deck to meet the future needs for convenient access to all businesses in the Dixon Street area. And the success of the residential parking program in the entertainment district has alleviated many of the problems voiced by residents who require better access to their homes. We now have 3 dog parks in Fayetteville, most recently the Imes Dog Park at Bryce Davis Community Park. We have pedicabs, swing sets renovated to gain ADA compliance, enhanced sidewalk and outdoor mobile vendor opportunities, and we even have back-end parking. The Block Avenue improvements support local businesses and provide residents with a safer, more pedestrian-friendly, and aesthetically pleasing link between Dixon Street and the downtown square. The block party in May and the holiday bazaar in December brought thousands of people to share the alluring festivities. 2011 saw great participation in our recreation programs, such as 1,466 participants in spring youth soccer, 410 participants in spring youth softball, over 250 softball teams in our spring, summer, and fall leagues. Wilson Pool had 21,500 visitors in the summer, 521 people enrolled in the 2011 swimming lesson program, and 8 summer Be Active camps had 450 youth participants. In its 3rd year, the adult co-ed kickball program grew to 48 teams, and the Yvonne Richardson Community Center had almost 22,000 visits in 2011, an unbelievable 130% increase from 2010. Fayetteville is also one of the first cities in the United States to join the Let's Move national program with the Let's Move Trail Tour that I lead quarterly to help reduce childhood obesity while educating children and their families about Fayetteville parks and trails. Fayetteville continues to help lessen the impact of hunger and malnutrition in our community with local foods initiatives such as Feed Fayetteville, With a Can We Can, Fayetteville Community Garden Coalition, M&N Augustine Foundation, Easter Feed, St. Paul's Episcopal Church and United Methodist Church weekly free meals. The Northwest Arkansas Food Bank and so many community organizations do much to assure the quality of lives. Next point I want to bring out tonight is the environmental sustainability. No other city in Arkansas has demonstrated a commitment to environmental sustainability equal to ours. We were placed number 6 in the nation in the 2009 National Resources Defense Council Smarter Cities Project, formerly part of the National Geographic's Green Guide. Our leadership serves as an example to educate and encourage our neighbors to adopt policies that treat ecosystems as assets that generate benefits to our communities. After extensive public participation and comment, the City Plan 2030 was adopted unanimously by the Fayetteville City Council in July of 2011 and serves as Fayetteville's comprehensive land use plan. Our vision is that Fayetteville will be a resource-efficient community in which residents can live, work, learn, and grow. It will guide our policies to achieve sustainability, to provide economic growth, to preserve and protect our natural and cultural resources, and to enhance the quality of life of all residents. The completion of the state's first LEED Platinum certified apartment complex in 2011 and the proposal for 2 additional infill LEED apartment projects suggest that private developers are taking it seriously. Our new streamside protection ordinance, adopted by the City Council in March, will protect the integrity of our city's waterways and ultimately the region's drinking water. It is the first ordinance of its kind in the state of Arkansas. In partnership with the Watershed Conservation Resource Center, we developed an urban stream restoration project at Neocoska Creek in Sweetbriar Park, using a natural channel design approach that included development of wetlands. Additionally, we are producing a new drainage criteria manual to include low-impact development criteria and best management practices that will also improve water quality. We have made major strides in our recycling efforts this year. We secured a commercial market for recycling number 3 through number 7 plastic and offered drop-off collection for those items until curbside collection is feasible in the future. We began an apartment recycling program at 2 large apartment complexes. We've expanded our commercial cardboard recycling program by 11% and the commercial curbside recycling program by 26%. In addition, we provide a commercial paper recycling program at every public school and 2 private schools in the city. Design has been completed for the new recycling drop-off and education facility on Broyles Road using low-impact design features. And the facility will be open later this year. This year, City Councilwoman Rhonda Adams and I will be proposing that it be named the Marion Orton Recycling and Education Center in honor of former Mayor Marion Orton, who led the way for the first public recycling center in the city in 1971. This year, we implemented the new Community Revolving Loan Fund to install $220,000 in energy savings retrofits for buildings of 3 nonprofit organizations: the Botanical Garden of the Ozarks, the Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce, and the Mount Sequoia Conference Center. The loans will be repaid with energy savings and reinvested in buildings owned by other nonprofit organizations. We've completed the solar biosolids dryer project, which has eliminated biosolids hauling to the landfill. And we began selling dried Class A biosolids for improving soil quality, increasing crop yields, and reducing the application of commercial fertilizers. We held the annual tree giveaway on October the 15th at the Fayetteville Town Center, providing 1,100 trees and 160 shrubs to citizens to plant on their property and to help reestablish our city's urban forest. The city planted trees in 12 residential developments in 2011, planting 312 trees in street right-of-ways as part of the Tree Preservation and Protection Ordinance. These trees over time will reduce stormwater peak flows and air pollution, increase oxygen supply and property values, provide wildlife habitat, and beautify neighborhoods. The Arbor Day Foundation awarded the city its 16th consecutive Tree City USA Award for Fayetteville's continuing efforts to preserve trees and promote the benefits of trees. The Native Grass Program began in 2009. Park staff has continued to work with the Fayetteville Natural Heritage Association and Environmental Studies Center in a joint project to restore a native grass prairie at Lake Fayetteville along the historic Butterfield Trail. Invasive species are being removed, and good stands of big blue stem, little blue stem, and Indian grasses have been established. Wildflowers will be seeded this year. In addition to the area at Lake Fayetteville, park staff installed Indian grass, little blue stem, and switchgrass on the hillside at Mount Sequoia Gardens. Involving neighborhood residents, the staff has continued to work with volunteers to establish native plants and trees at Clabber Creek Trail and the Wilson Park Volunteer Native Riparian Planting Demonstration Project. By protecting, preserving, and assuring the wise use and development of our environmental resources, we are creating a healthy community to be enjoyed by all and a legacy to our children. We're doing our part to achieve a more sustainable future in which our actions and community fit the natural systems that sustain life. My next point is open government. Nothing makes me more proud than the informed engagement and active participation of Fayetteville residents who care about our community and demand a voice in how it is governed. That is our strength. I have deep faith in the collective wisdom of our diverse community, and I trust them to get it right and make the right decisions when they have all the information. That is why I have made open government a keystone of my administration and have devoted significant resources to facilitate both public access to information and informed public participation. And I want to thank the public for their advice on how the city's website could be improved. We listened to your recommendations, and the city's website is now a far more functional, informational, and interactive website than ever before. We have received the Juggle Award 2 years in a row as a top local government website in the nation, and the city was honored as a Digital City of the Year. We continue to make improvements to accessfederal.org and appreciate your recommendations on how we can best serve your online needs and requests for services. 5 times a year, I hold town hall meetings in which department heads and I go out into the community and have open mic opportunities to update the public on public projects and to hear from the people about their ideas and address their questions. The federal government channel provides full coverage of these town hall meetings and schedules them on the federal government channel in the same professional manner that all city council and city board commission and committee meetings are scheduled on the cable and provided as an on-demand 24/7 service on the city's website. Improvements to online subscription services, additional uses of social media to connect with and to the community, the addition of YouTube service, informational message boards in certain public areas in city buildings, additional online resources for immediate 24/7 public document access, and a greater ease at finding information on Access Federal. We implemented a new contract for the education channel as 24/7 run by the Fayetteville School District. The revised contract for management of the public access channel now provides for free training and more convenient classes that have expanded opportunities for citizens to make their television programs or to express their opinions in the 5-minute short takes. These are a few of the things your city government is doing to increase openness, inclusion, and accessibility for all the residents of the city. And as I close tonight, I see a bright future. The state of our city is sound, and I believe we have an even brighter future. As John Lennon once said, "You may say I'm a dreamer, but I don't think I'm the only one." It is not empty optimism that gives me strong hope for our continued success in the coming year. We can, if we will, make this time a genuine period of progress for our community, because I know that we share a common sense of purpose to serve all the people, to carefully manage our resources, to make a better life a reality for everyone. Now, I want to thank and recognize a few people here tonight. First, I would like for this city council to stand. Would you please? I want to thank this city council for their work this last year. You've been a tremendous group to work with, and you've shown very sound judgment and always keeping the people of this city first. And you've been just a great, great group for this mayor to work with. Thank you. You may be seated. I would like for our city clerk to stand, please. Yeah. I want to thank our city clerk, Sandra Smith, and her staff for all their work keeping the public informed and the records of this city in excellent order. She has been a tremendous resource and a great servant to this city. I'd like for Kit Williams to stand. I want to thank the city attorney, Kit Williams, and his staff for a fine job on solid legal advice. He's been a fine counselor and a good friend. So thank you, Kit, for the work that you do.
Pleasure, Mayor.
And last, I want the citizens out there to stand up tonight. Everybody stand up. I want to thank those of you standing tonight and those of you that are watching by TV. I want to thank the people of Fayetteville for making this city, the city of Fayetteville, the best city in the nation. I look forward to another year working together to honor the responsibility that the people of Fayetteville have placed in all of our hands. Let us serve them well and without fail. Thank you. Okay, moving right along to the consent agenda.
We have an agenda addition.
Yes, we do.
And I guess Chris Brown's really the sponsor of this, and I saw him back there, and he's reluctantly coming forward, but he has good news, Mayor.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We do have a proposal in front of you for a settlement with the property owner on Cato Springs Road. I believe this was set for trial somewhere around the 1st of February. So
February 6th, so this is when we need to hear it.
Very, very time sensitive. This is one of the properties that we did have to go through condemnation with on Cato Springs Road. It's Ricky, Leon, and Don Sparks. At the time of the condemnation, we placed $5,650 into the court and received an order of possession. Prior to the filing of condemnation, we did make them an offer of $11,850, which they refused at the time. So we went through the condemnation. We've now come back to that very same number as a settlement proposal. And so this is a recommendation to settle the case for an additional $6,200. So the total amount to be paid to the Sparks is $11,850.
So we need to make a motion to put this resolution on the agenda, correct?
That's correct.
We have a motion and a second to put the resolution on the agenda. Any public comment on this? See none, bring it back to the council. Everybody good? Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Tennant.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Boudreaux.
Yes.
Okay, now we need to vote on the resolution.
Yes, and I'd like to add that I want to thank the engineering department who made further contact with the Sparks. They did come in today and did sign an acknowledgement that they are settling the case, sign the deeds, which we will keep if you all approve the settlement, and we will return to them if you don't. But as our city engineer said, this was actually an offer that was made to them earlier that they did not accept. And so we feel like it's a fair offer and that this case should be settled at this amount.
Any comments or questions from the council on this? Is there any public comment on the resolution? Bring it back to the council.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass the resolution. I guess we better read it. Resolution approving a settlement agreement with Ricky Sparks and Don Sparks concerning condemnation litigation filed as part of the Cato Springs Road Improvement Project in a total amount of $11,850, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. If there's not any final comments from the council, Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Tennant.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Boudreaux.
Yes.
Thank you all. Moving to the consent agenda. Number one, approval of the January 3rd, 2012 City Council meeting minutes. Number two, T-Hanger lease agreements. Resolution to approve T-Hanger lease agreements throughout 2012 at the current rental rate or as adjusted upward by the Airport Board for all T-Hangers rented at the Fayetteville Executive Airport. Number three, South Delta Aviation Incorporated. Resolution to approve a 2-year lease for the airport hangar at 4248 South School Avenue to South Delta Aviation Incorporated for a rent of $3,000 per month to begin on June the 1st, 2012. Number four, Arkansas Department of Aeronautics grant. A resolution authorizing application and acceptance of the Arkansas Department of Aeronautics 80/20 grant in the amount of $224,000 for improvements to the former AATC hangar building at Drake Field. Number five, McClellan Consulting Engineers Task Order Number 7. A resolution approving Task Order Number 7 to contract with McClellan Consulting Engineers in the amount of $27,150 to design the rehabilitation of former AATC hangar building at Drake Field and approving a budget adjustment. Number 6, Transportation Division truck equipment purchase. Resolution approving a budget adjustment in the amount of $6,000 to fund the purchase of extendo bed topper and ladder rack for pickup unit, truck unit number 2147. Number 7, bid number 11-65, Central Salt Company. Resolution awarding bid number 11-65 and authorizing the purchase of crushed salt, rock salt from Central Salt Company in the amount of $79,085 per ton as needed through the end of calendar year 2012. Number 8, bid number 12-01, Time Striping Incorporated. Resolution awarding bid number 12-01 and authorizing the purchase from Time Striping Incorporated of thermal striping and variable amounts for the Transportation Division as needed through the end of calendar year 2012. Number 9, bid number 12-02, Asphalt Striping Service LLC. A resolution awarding bid number 12-02 and authorizing the purchase from Asphalt Striping Service LLC of reflectorized paint markings and variable amounts for the Transportation Division is needed through the end of calendar year 2012. Number 10, bid number 12-03, Falkman Enterprises Incorporated and Sweetser Construction Incorporated. A resolution awarding bid number 12-03 and authorizing the purchase of curb and gutter construction from Falkman Enterprises Incorporated as a primary supplier and Sweetser Construction Incorporated as a secondary supplier and variable amounts, and authorizing the use of other bidders based on price and availability as needed through the end of calendar year 2012. Number 11, bid number 12-04, Les Rogers Incorporated. Resolution awarding bid number 12-04 and authorizing the purchase of hillside gravel from Les Rogers Incorporated for variable unit prices and authorizing the use of other bidders and based on price and availability as needed through the end of calendar year 2012. Number 12, bid number 12-05, Beaver Lake Concrete Incorporated and Toon Concrete Company. A resolution awarding bid 12-05 and authorizing the purchase of concrete from Beaver Lake Concrete Incorporated as a primary supplier and Toon Concrete Company as a secondary supplier in variable amounts and authorizing the use of other bidders based on price and availability as needed through the end of calendar year 2012. Number 13, bid number 12-06, Hillside Haulers. A resolution awarding bid number 12-06 and authorizing the purchase of truck hauling services from Hillside Haulers for variable unit prices and authorizing the use of other bidders based on price and availability as needed through the end of calendar year 2012. Number 14, bid number 12-07, Aggregate Materials. A resolution awarding bid number 12-07 and authorizing the purchase of aggregate materials for varying unit prices from various vendors as needed through the end of calendar year 2012. Number 15, bid number 12-09, Thompson Asphalt Company and Sweetser Construction Incorporated. Resolution awarding bid number 12-09 and authorizing the purchase of curb and gutter construction from Thompson Asphalt Company Incorporated as a primary supplier and Sweetser Construction Incorporated as a secondary supplier, and variable amounts for use in the Ozark Regional Transit New Freedom projects as needed through the end of calendar year 2012. Number 16, bid number 12-10, Drainage Pipe. A resolution awarding bid number 12-10 and authorizing the purchase of drainage pipe for varying unit amounts from various vendors for use in Ozark Regional Transit New Freedom projects and other city projects as needed through the end of calendar year 2012. And so,
I move with press. Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as read. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Tennant.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Boudreaux.
Yes.
Okay, under unfinished business, thank you, council. Bellefonte Gardens Tree Preservation Area Modification. A resolution to approve the modification of tree preservation area in the Bellefonte Gardens development to shift about 1/2 acre of tree preservation area from Lot 1 to Lot 4.
Mr. Mayor, the applicant has requested this item be tabled indefinitely. We're continuing to work with them for hopefully a resolution to this matter that they have requested to be tabled indefinitely.
So moved.
We have
Second.
a motion and a second to table indefinitely. Any comments or questions from council on this?
Question, Mayor.
Yes.
Just trying to remember, Kit, procedurally, if 6 weeks from now or 2 weeks from now we can come back and set a date. I was just trying to remember that indefinite deal. On
The rule is that if it is tabled indefinitely on December 31st, it is then deemed denied, but it will be alive until December 31st.
I just want to make sure. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Everybody good?
Yes.
Okay, if there's not any comments, Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Tennant,
Yes.
Farrell,
Yes.
Adams, Lewis,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Boudreaux,
Yes.
Okay. Number 2, Kum Go appeal, resolution to grant an appeal of Kum Go LLC and to amend and approve a large-scale development to match the plat submitted with its appeal letter. What do we have on this?
Mr. Mayor, just a brief history on where we've been. November 14th, Planning Commission approved a large-scale development for a Kum Go convenience store and gas station. About a 5,000 square foot convenience store and gasoline fueling station, 16 fueling pumps at the intersection southwest corner of Hill Avenue and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Through the entire review process, there were several opinions which were noted by the applicant at the last meeting by the subdivision committee. This went through subdivision committee twice. The subdivision committee is made up of rotating members, and they voiced differing opinions on what access should be. Ultimately, it goes to the full planning commission for a decision. Staff and the planning commission ended up recommending the same thing as part of that review process, and that was approval of the large-scale development, also approval of a variance to allow a curb cut onto Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, but restricting that curb cut to no left in and no left out. In addition, the staff and planning commission placed a condition of approval to require an access to Royal Oak Parkway, which is a street to the west of this site. At issue here is an appeal of those two particular items, the access to Royal Oak Parkway, which the applicant just prefers not to do. They prefer, I think, a pedestrian access. And secondly, they would like an unrestricted left turn in to the site. They've stated, for the record, they're not pursuing a left turn out at this particular location. A traffic report was handed out at that first meeting. It was the first that staff had a chance to look at that, and so we tabled that, and at the request of the city attorney and city council, our engineering staff took a look at that, and Chris Brown has a report for you on his analysis of that this evening. We won't go through the entire report because you've had some time to look over that, but he will give you some of those highlights. But in general, what we're seeing is, what's anticipated is about 3,400 vehicle trips per day will be generated by this development, this intersection that we don't see today. So that's a significant increase at this intersection. Our concern primarily is with safety, and that's what we've looked at through our access management ordinance, and what we always look at with traffic safety and congestion management as part of our responsibilities as city staff. We've approached this development consistently with the city council's adopted ordinances in place. Those aren't rules that we're making up. Those are the rules we're simply following that you all have adopted and we're required to follow. Again, to address traffic safety and congestion management for our citizens and our visitors. It's also apparent by the 2 or 3 legal opinions by way of memo that Mr. Williams has offered that he has concerns with the city's ability to limit access to this property, specifically the left turn in that staff has found is dangerous, particularly with the proximity of the high school and multiple student apartment complexes in this vicinity. That concern is very real to us, and it's something we hope to continue that dialogue with city attorneys and with our peers and other cities that have very similar access management ordinances, that hopefully we can come to some sort of resolution. But I don't think that resolution is going to occur tonight. I think that's a continuing discussion. We're here to try to make a decision on this particular project. In a lot of ways, it comes down to an acceptable degree of safety that the city council is willing to accept in this particular location. From a staff's perspective, the highest degree of safety, which is what we're recommending, is to not permit a left turn. That obviously there is no potential for head-on collisions in that particular scenario. The lowest degree of safety, in our opinion, is to allow an unrestricted left turn into the site, which is what is currently on the table. I think there are varying degrees, though, between those, and that's something I think Chris Brown can discuss tonight about what other options may be on the table. But that's just something we want to make sure that you're aware of. That's how we've reviewed this and considered this application from the start, is safety for our citizens. As Mr. Marr mentioned at the last meeting we discussed this, I'm not sure that there's any degree of safety that we're willing to accept where there's a student having a head-on collision in this particular location. So that's really what we're looking at, is the highest degree of safety that we can maintain and still allow this business to prosper. City's engineering staff, as I mentioned, has received that traffic study report, reviewed that, and they have a report on that at the request of the City Council, and hopefully they can offer some more information regarding the information that was presented by Small Aerial Engineering at the last meeting.
Yes, thank you, Jeremy. Hope you all were able to find my memo. It's a little ways back in the packet. I think it's after page 78. It is where my memo is located on this particular item. As Jeremy said, we have had a chance to take a look at the traffic study, and I'll start with just a few observations and items that we noted. First of all, there were no real traffic counts taken as part of the study, just observation on a Friday afternoon. There was really no analysis of the stacking and the queuing of the traffic or a level of service, which is typically what you see in a traffic study. There's a note about a traffic split of 60-40. Again, this was based on the observation of that limited period of time. There was no crash data, no analysis of that. So really all of those are items that, for it really to be a full-blown study, are items that really should have been included. I should also note that the study does agree with our staff assertions, and we'll talk more about this in a minute, about the conflict of east and westbound vehicles using Hill Avenue and the driveway. Recommendations in the study for improvements to the intersection and the area for traffic include upgrade of the traffic signal at MLK and Hill Avenue to provide protected left turns. And then kind of the central focus of this discussion, modification of the center lane striping or installing a mountable median on MLK to separate those left turns. And again, we'll talk more about that. So just kind of in summary, I don't really think this was intended to be a full-blown traffic study, and it's really not. Rather, it's just an observation, again, on an afternoon. There are many pieces of data that are typically taken as part of a traffic study and are analyzed. And so really, the study provided by Small Aerial Engineering and the work that staff did really were basically the same thing, observation of traffic. We provided a video the last time that kind of showed you a picture of that traffic observation. But having said that, I think you can see that the observation of the traffic engineer and the city staff are really very similar. They noted in their study that the traffic does back up all the way from Hill Avenue back to the west through the proposed driveway. So we know that based on their observation, and again the video that you guys saw last time, that is happening. That is happening right now prior to this development. So I think really the bottom line, the point we want to make here is that traffic engineering, there's a lot of data, there's a lot of analysis, but there's also observation, and I think everybody can see out there what the potential problems are. So I think that's really the point that we wanted to make. The other thing that we did, just as some additional information about potential impacts of a driveway, we asked the highway department for some crash data, and this data was for a quarter mile either side of the intersection of Hill and MLK, and then the same set of data a quarter mile either side of the intersection of Razorback Road and MLK. And that information is included with my memo. I believe it's on starting on page 4 of that memo. And what that data shows is that the crash rates, and it's expressed in terms of million vehicle miles traveled, crash rates at Razorback Road are about double what they are at Hill Avenue. Obviously, there is a lot more development around Razorback Road than there is around Hill Avenue, a lot more driveways. So really the crash rates and the number of driveways, the relative numbers of those compare very, very closely. We went a little bit further in that review and looked at crashes east of Razorback Road and west of Razorback Road. There are about 80 crashes west of Razorback Road and 44 east of the intersection, with 12 actually in the intersection itself. There are about twice the number of driveways, actually more than twice the number of driveways west of Razorback. And so again, the number of crashes and the number of driveways compare. It's a very close comparison in terms of crashes. So I think, as the memo indicates, we didn't do a full analysis and look at every single item, look at every single crash. But the tendency, you can see that the data shows that crashes and driveways, there certainly is a correlation there. So finally, coming down to the recommendation, again, the traffic study that's provided by Small Air Engineering talks about striping or a median that could be installed. We have looked at that, and looking at the median, there is an opportunity to install a median that would separate the two left turns, and again, that's the concern that we have. So just as Jeremy noted, there is kind of a hierarchy of safety, and I don't think Jeremy mentioned the first hierarchy is no driveway at all. If there were no driveway there, there's no potential for conflicts by the driveway. So that's really the first item. And then as you go up, you restrict the types of turns that you make into or out of the driveway. The Planning Commission, as you all know, the Planning Commission approved this with a variance to allow right in, right out. Again, that's remains our recommendation. We believe that's really the safest compromise. But I do want to talk a little bit about the median, if y'all want to entertain that view. And that's on the very last page. I think it says page 8 of 8. Is that what y'all says?
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So if you turn that with so that the logo is to the right, Hill Avenue will be on the right side of the page. And so the red is the proposed median. And what that does, obviously, is separates the left turn so that as you're approaching Hill Avenue from the west, you would not be able to move over into the left turn lane until the median moves over and then provides that left turn lane. So it would stop cars from moving over into the left turn lane too quickly. Alternatively, as you're coming from the east towards the driveway, it would do the same. So essentially, it separates the two left turns into the driveway and into Hill Avenue. And so that's the concept that we've come up with. We reviewed this with the engineer, with Small AR Engineering, and he is in agreement with this arrangement. We have talked to the Highway Department. Their response has, I guess I would say it's been not overwhelmingly positive, but it's not something they said, no, this would never work. Our expectation is really until this proposal is made to the Highway Department that really they're not going to give us a response one way or the other until a formal proposal is made with all of the level of detail that they need to make their review. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
What questions do we have, Chris? Sarah?
Who submits that proposal to this Highway Department? Whose job is that?
It will be the developer. We have in the past and would anticipate in this case provide a letter of support based on our review and support them in their permit request.
Okay, thanks.
I might add, Sarah, that our advocacy will be stronger than a letter in terms of our dialogue with the Highway Department because of the importance of this issue.
Nathan?
What secondary effects would you anticipate from the installation of a median?
Well, I think well, first of all, there really are a couple of things, and again, this is some of the Highway Department comments. I'll just pass along what they said. Number one, the amount of construction in the roadway, just during the time of construction, potentially that you could have to go actually east of the intersection of Hill to make the transition back, because it will have to require some widening moving the curb line to the south a little bit. So there are some impacts from that standpoint. And then really the other impact is that the property on the north side, there then will be a median. So the driveway location of any development that may occur over there would have to be located such that it would work with that median. So it does impact the property on the north side as well.
Bobby.
Just so I'm understanding you, Chris, during this interim, the applicant is okay with waiting to go through to see what the state does with this compromise type thing?
Right. That's really a typical process. Any work on the state highway such as this, they get approval to do it, but then they have the extra step of getting the permitting through the highway department. And they may want to speak to their level of comfort.
Any other questions for Chris?
Yeah, I have a question. What happens, and I'm not sure Chris or whoever can answer it, but let's say this says, okay, you can do this with the contingent upon the installation of a median, and it goes through the whole process of the state, and then they come, and then what if the project just doesn't go through? And
well, in fact, after I read Chris's report today, I didn't get to see it till today. We're in the municipal league, and of course, with the vacation, I appreciate his work on this. I thought I should probably prepare something in case you wanted to choose this particular option of the median option. So there's a resolution here, and what the resolution would say, I've already had one resolution that you have in your packet that would just grant the appeal. You can also, of course, have a motion to deny the appeal. This would be kind of an in-between thing. This resolution would grant the appeal in relation to Site Plan F, but with the moderation or the amendment for this median concept, and that it would have to be built at the developer's cost, and if the highway department did not approve it, that would be one of the conditions of approval, then they would have a right to come back to the city council at that point in time to have your final decision if the highway department does not allow them to build a median. At that point in time, you would have to make the decision then about, knowing the highway department will not allow the median, what will you decide to do? So I decided to draft this up this afternoon when I read Chris's procedure or proposal, so that you would at least have that option to look at and to consider. And I don't know, I just handed it out also to the applicant right before the meeting started, so I don't know what their position on it is. I gave it to Jeremy and Chris, and gave it to Don earlier. And so that is just something else for you to look at and to try to determine what is in the best interest of Fayetteville.
Alderman Willis, if I may add to that more directly to your question, if the project never happened, it's likely we would have never permitted the construction. So if Kum Go decides this is not the project for them, then that construction wouldn't have occurred either.
okay.
Yeah, they're not going to build a median, they're not building the project.
Right.
Any comments or questions? Anything else? Will we hear from the public? Yes, we will hear from the applicant first.
Mayor, I did have one more question for Chris.
Sure.
Chris, when you were talking about the traffic counts, I was thinking about, I think it was the applicant that told us before that he had counted 130 different concerns between 540 and Hill and MLK that had unencumbered access to both sides of the road. Some signalized, some not. And of course, I would have figured Razorback would have been a much higher count. But when you go west out towards where you have, if we're trying to do something similar, you got Ramey Junior High down there. We've got some places. Wouldn't you suspect that there's a very high traffic count there also, somewhere in the neighborhood of what you're experiencing at Razorback?
Yes, the traffic count, you're talking about traffic counts or accidents?
Vehicles in and out of a location, excuse me, let me change that.
Right, the number of driveways?
Yeah.
Yes, it's really, I think, pretty similar from Razorback Road all the way out to 540.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Well, and then I guess I need a reminder again. So when we established the access management ordinance in 2001, is that what you said?
No, it was 2007, is that it?
I believe.
2007. Okay, so it's relatively new.
It is, but we have always had, or not always, but for 37 years, we've had the provision for large-scale developments that they can be denied if they create or compound a dangerous traffic condition.
Okay.
So that a lot of the development, I'm sure, that has occurred on Martin Luther King over the last 37 years, or most of the businesses there have probably been built or remodeled sufficiently that they would come under that if they are large-scale development, which means an acre or more. So some would be smaller than that and would not therefore generate that concern, but some would be. I think a large number would probably be large-scale developments. So that would be something that we've looked at, the Planning Commission, the planning staff has looked at dangerous traffic conditions for a long time.
And in addition, we've had driveway separation standards, much like a lot of ordinances, they develop over time over concerns. And so what our access management ordinance did in 2008 was pull all of those together from different sections of our Unified Development Code and adopted them in one particular section, much like we've done the landscape ordinance, the sign ordinance. It's all now in one location, so the developer or applicant or staff can go to one place and find all those standards. And we also, when we adopted that and presented to the Planning Commission and Council, we looked at a number of the other larger cities in Arkansas to try to provide a pretty consistent standard. So you'll find very similar language in Little Rock, North Little Rock, Fort Smith, Conway, Rogers, Bentonville, and Springdale. They're all very, 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 very close.
Excuse me just a minute. Could I ask y'all to turn your cell phones off? Please put it on vibrate. Great. Okay. Who else? Adele.
Yeah. May I ask Jeremy something? Jeremy, help me understand, do we have, what kind of access do we have to Kum Go at Township and College?
The access at Township and College, there is I believe a full access, if I'm not mistaken, on College Avenue. It used to be, the properties that they acquired there were a couple of different properties. There's an access easement though that would allow access for future development where there's some existing businesses to the east there, so that would be a shared curb cut in the future for additional businesses. The access on Township is actually an existing city street, so there was no additional access granted on Township. They utilize an existing city street that's kind of up above
right
on that road, and Jane Avenue, I believe, is the name of that road. So.
But is there a left turn allowed off of College?
Yes, there is.
Mm-hmm.
You can get there.
So
Yes.
help me understand how the MLK store differs. Help me understand how it differs.
There's not a lot of difference except for the fact that our access management ordinance specifically states that if you're sharing access with another property, which that has a shared access easement filed, so another property to the east has rights to access that.
On Township?
No, on College.
MLK.
On
College.
That's
okay,
correct.
Excuse
that
me.
there is
College.
the ability, because theoretically that reduces the number of curb cuts that are created. Before, if you remember when the Butcher Block and all those there were several curb cuts up and down through there. It was kind of just a wide open curb cut in a lot of ways, and they reduced that down to one. So they improved the situation dramatically. However, we've received concerns about the existing scenario today with a left in. And so it's certainly not something that I don't think is desirable. I think in retrospect, a limited left turn in there would also have been advisable. But again, that decision's made. We're not going back to change that decision. But I think the reality of it is, in this particular case, drivers will recognize when they can't make that turning movement. Our concern on this site is that you have a 2,000 student high school population that's in very close proximity, many of which will likely utilize this new gas station or in this general area, and they're not always the most experienced drivers. Most of them are first-time drivers. So that's just another element of concern we have in this particular stretch of road.
And how does the traffic count compare? Can you give me an idea?
Chris, do you have any idea what traffic counts are? College Township.
You don't think it would be as high?
No, I think college would be higher.
I would probably
I would
think that's
I would think so, but it's impossible to know what
Township, I think, would definitely be higher than what Hill is today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Would the applicants like to address this, and then we'll...
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Aaron Rushing with City Engineering. At this point, I'm kind of scratching my head trying to figure out what to do next. We got to handle the resolution. We're fine with the resolution. We'd like to explore this opportunity with the Highway Department and see how far we can go with this. I would like some feedback from you guys on this, if you are comfortable with this. Otherwise, or any additional information that I can provide as far as these two issues with Royal Oak and MLK. Are there any issues with this resolution if we say we're good with it?
You're talking about the one of the median.
Exactly.
Well, I think that's hard to say. The council will probably have to hear some public comment, then they'll have to make some comments on it and decide from there. I hate to speak for the council. We're just start taking a straw vote up here. So.
Okay. I have some additional information on that one at Township and College. That separation is 230 feet from that full access drive up to Township. There's also a driveway that's 30 feet south of that one too. So I thought I'd share that with you.
Thank you.
But I think the point is you're okay with the resolution.
We're okay with the resolution. Yeah, we'd like to see how far we can get. Obviously, we have to go through the district office, and that can be a challenge sometimes.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else from?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Rob Wiley, Kum Go. Good to see everybody again. We are fine with the resolution, but we brought a traffic engineer last time. It wasn't from recommendation from staff. That's why there's some disparities between ours and the traffic consultant or traffic engineer here. But our traffic engineer basically said that he doesn't feel that we need a median for safety concerns. Okay, we have 272 feet from Hill. I just want to be clear on that. A couple things Mr. Brown did mention that crash study, I don't believe he did. There was a 3-year period. One of you did mention that there is a correlation between the traffic as well. There's substantially more traffic on the west side of Razorback. And again, last month we talked about the necessity for me to have a 3/4. It hasn't changed. I've got to have a 3/4 access for us to build this development. But we're for that median. If staff would recommend approval of that median, I guess I haven't heard that. Jeremy, is staff? Do you guys recommend the median?
I think if the mayor,
yes, go ahead.
If the council wishes to allow an access, I think that's where our recommendation would be, is to permit a median if a left turning movement is allowed in this location.
Okay. I guess the last thing I got is our buildings are LEED certified. We do have a sustainability manager on staff. It was a good presentation, by the way. Thank you very much. Any questions for me?
I have a question.
Yes.
2 weeks ago, or 4 weeks ago, or 8, or however long ago it was, you mentioned in your traffic study that you guys did, or that your business intelligence group did, or whatever.
Yep.
A percentage of the cars that you would lose a day if you didn't get the access, and was it 27%, or I can't remember?
It was half of MLK. Half of MLK, yes. If we did not get a left in. Okay. It was just under half.
With a median, does that keep that loss from happening, do you think?
Yes, because we'd still be able to make a left in.
Okay. Thank you.
And I believe, and this wasn't said at all, but college, I believe it's twice as much traffic count as MLK. That's from my broker.
Yeah,
he's familiar with the area.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Is it appropriate at this time to submit this as the resolution?
Well, I want to get some more public comment if that's okay, and then we can.
Well, I feel like that's what we're discussing anyway.
That's fine. If y'all want to go ahead and make that motion, I'll be good.
You could just, I guess, make a move to pass this resolution. I don't mean you're going to vote on it right now, but to put it on the table, you would move to pass this one. I don't think the other one was submitted with the initial agenda item, so it really wasn't before you unless somebody made a motion to pass it
So
anyway.
you're saying they need a motion to put it on the agenda?
No, just a motion to
Okay.
pass the one with subsection 2 and with the median, and it needs a second and then more discussion, not necessarily
Okay.
immediately going to a
That'd
vote.
be fine. Go ahead.
I would like to move that we add the median concept as suggested in the revised resolution so that it can be discussed accurately here.
Second.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Now,
no vote.
and no vote. Now let's start on the resolution. Yes. Introduce yourself.
Yes, Hunter Haynes, representing the owner, Chambers Bank. What we're looking at tonight is a resolution for a left-hand turn. That's what the buyers ask us. That's what they've come to us and said, without this, we can't make this deal happen. We believe that they are the highest and best use for the property. We also understand the need and the desire from both the applicant, our buyer, and with the city, that if there is an alternative to do a left-hand turn, that a median would be appropriate. The buyer is willing to pursue that avenue, but should the highway department decide not to do that, and that ultimately is not what we're here asking for.
So we're back to square one, basically.
Yeah, and that's what we looked at, and that's why we agree with Kit's assertion of what he sent us. We're very appreciative of that, and that's what we're really just trying to understand is the left turn access. Condition on the applicant working with staff and providing the median is what we would ask.
Okay. Anybody else? Now, is that all for the applicants? Yes, Mr. Clark.
I'm not with the applicants.
Well, is the applicants through with their presentation right now? Okay. Now let's start public comment.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, first of all, I should congratulate you, Mayor, on that State of the City address, and congratulate the council on the achievements that our city has accomplished in this past year. As to this project, I think, again, there's plenty of room for compliments. The compliments go to the city's professional staff, both Mr. Brown and to Jeremy and Mr. Pate as well. You know, part of what the issue before you is, can a business make an investment in our city and continue to see our city grow and thrive, but do so in a fashion that, as they pointed out, the utmost concern being safety for all of our residents, but also, as was pointed out, in doing such, perhaps have a way to have a traffic calming impact. That's what the median sounds like to us at the Chamber. It's a traffic calming impact. Now that's good not just for students, that's good if anybody drives that road anytime of day, 24/7. Because there is traffic on that road, whether the students are in school or not, in session or not. And so it seems to me that the best has been offered here in the sense that the city has come up with its professional staff to make a recommendation that allows the investor to move forward, allows the city to get a traffic calming benefit from that, and allows the city to continue to grow and thrive. From the Chamber's perspective, we would urge you to adopt such a resolution. Obviously, if something changes if there is a no at the State Highway Department, there is a no and you're back to square one. But the recommendation from the city staff and the acceptance of the movement, the applicant that is, I think has an incidental benefit that literally affects most of the population of our city, as having that additional traffic calming inclusion. We have looked for that in our city before. Some of us like some of them better than others, but we do like the fact that they're there. Even those that fuss about them like the fact that they're there. And as our city continues to grow, and as on the south end of our city we will continue to grow, we'll need traffic calming applications, and this one seems to be having that effect. So from the Chamber's perspective, we support the applicant and their willingness to accept this median, and we would urge you as the council to accept that and move it favorably out so that they could go forward to the State Highway Department. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, who's next?
Mr. Mayor and Council, I'm Aubrey Shepherd, and I live in that neighborhood and use that intersection regularly, daily, sometimes multiple times, but we often avoid it and go to the south and over at using 15th Street or 13th Street. And those are good options that residents have, but going to Kum Go store, is a totally new thing. In addition to the traffic will be generated because of the need for access to that store, there will be the new traffic coming from the apartments being built. Well, they've torn down all the structures at the old sale barn, so I think we're down to having to admit they're going to build apartments there, 4 stories. And that will generate traffic out the same way because that will be the shortest way to get to the university for people from the apartments at the sale barn. Doesn't mean the safest or best. But anyway, that traffic will also go through that intersection, whether uphill and turn out or go up Government and turn out without a light, or go up School and turn. Anyway, except going to 15th and taking the long way will require those several hundred students that are expected to live on the sale barn property to use that intersection. So the need for a light there has been known and was obvious. We thought we'd get one when Hill Place came in. At least we got a light before that, but the left turn when you come from the east was not provided. We're hoping, excuse me, we're not taking off my hat, I'm sorry. Some may tell me I ought to put it back on. But my dad told me that once there. But anyhow, the point is that it's a school zone for the high school. It's not designated so, but as we know, with another place to eat right up there, already there's Brenda's that high school students sometimes walk to. They'll certainly be coming to check out the things that are at that station, whether driving or walking. And I would say that this is the profile of that slope is something you don't really think about much if you just look at the plans from above. Yeah, I don't know just where those things would be in relation to the profile. There's a drop off if you're coming from the east. It's actually this way, right? If you're coming from the east and you get to Hill Avenue, you can't see the traffic that comes up over there. And it's a matter of sitting there very patiently and making sure if it's at night, you don't see any lights, there's no traffic coming from the side that's going to impair you from getting into the hill and then cutting down there. Now, depending on how you relate that, even with that impairment to traffic being built out there that you were just talking about as in the resolution, that's still something in the middle of the road that in the dark people hit. It's like all those things built 10 years ago, nearly was it, in Dixon Street. They were being banged around for years. People sort of learned to go around them and expect them, even if it's dark and rainy and stuff. But in the new ones on Block Avenue, people, you see the black rubber on those curbs all along. It started the day they were first opened up. It continues daily. And some of the nice things out there, try to beautify College Avenue. Those get hit a lot. So it does happen. They're not totally going to ensure anybody's safety because sometimes you can't see them, you don't expect them, or if you're just a little off when you make the turn or something. And anyway, they're sort of like the bumps in the street. They help, but sometimes when somebody flies over them, they might lose their control of steering, and there are always those violators. But anyway, this is a very dangerous intersection. I wish we could get testimony from everybody in my neighborhood. The person most likely to have come tonight passed away about within the last 3 or 4 days, and his services will be on Thursday afternoon with visitation at Beard on Thursday morning.
We're sorry to hear that.
Mr. Robert Williams, and you all remember him from talking with him and listening to him here and out on the land in our neighborhood. So I say we lost one of our neighborhood heroes again. Some of the wonderful people, I can't list them all, that I've known in that neighborhood over the years. Anyhow, he would be here to tell you about at least twice, as I remember his stories about the accidents he was involved in. Not his fault. People hit him at that intersection at Hill Avenue. And this was probably both of them before there was any light. But the point is, he left us at 61 years old, and you've seen him come up here and struggle to walk up here, and it was tough to get to this meeting sometimes for him. Or out there and walk around with us on the land in the old Aspen Ridge Hill Place property. But his injuries probably accounted for more of his problems, and we lost him early because of that, not because any bad habits he had. He was the closest thing innocent of sin I know in our neighborhood. So anyway, just remember that, yeah, when you talk about the safety of those kids that use it, that would be the first thing, and it should be treated as part of that school zone for the university and the high school. Thank you.
Thank you all. Who else will be next?
I'm Skip Beaton, and I'm on the north side there. And I guess maybe Jeremy would have the answer. The median looks continuous, and I have free and easy turns from left, say coming from the west going east right now into my property on how would the median change that? Well, there's not any diagram showing traffic turning left into my lots there. I have an acre there on the corner. It's just a solid red island. It's all about everybody taking that left in there. There's nothing about people taking lefts into my property.
Which corner are you in? I'm sorry.
The north side, the green building on the north side. There's an acre there, and it's the corner of Hill and MLK.
Okay.
And it seems like I have, no problem now. There's nothing there, and it looks like the island. It's all about getting that left turn down there, and you're going to have something that people have to jump over. Looks like to me. Is that true?
It would be if it is continuous. It's something we would need to look at as part of their development of construction plans.
Well, when y'all were talking about it and it appealed to you, was that a factor that you considered at all?
The appeal from what has been submitted to us is to not have any kind of different access management, it's simply to leave it in place currently. What we're afraid of at that west of that intersection is going to cause more head-on collisions with left turners, both turning west into your property or onto Hill Avenue, north into your property or Hill Avenue, and the same being turning south into this property. But that's something we definitely need to take a look at. I think Mr. Brown mentioned that as part of the highway department has mentioned that as well, and that may be something we just have to look at as part of, if this is approved as part of that development.
I mean, it turned out, it looked like that you looked at that island and decided that was a good thing. It looked like a good compromise.
I think it's certainly safer than not doing anything. I think that was kind of what we were talking about, the degrees of safety. We feel that's a safer scenario than not constructing anything and simply allowing the left turning movement to begin to occur.
Okay, so really, I'm not developing anything over there now, so I really don't, it doesn't count. I mean, it's just a duplex over there right now, but I have plans to develop that property. And I bought it because it had frontage on MLK. Since I bought it, there's been a rule about the 250 feet from the corner. And now you're going to put a median out there that people are probably going to have to jump over the corner
to get into my property.
Well, I think
That's all I noticed about it.
So you're not in favor of the median?
Well, not if that's the case.
Okay.
I mean, it looks like a solid red line, and if you'll look at the traffic, it's all about taking that left down there into the Kum Go. I'm all for the Kum Go.
Okay, well,
100%. I want to get that clear. But
first they've got to design the median, and I don't really know how long it's going to be, or how wide it's going to be, or how tall it's going to be right now until it's designed by the engineers. Then it's got to be sent to the state highway department, and they're going to have to okay it. And if they don't okay it, then we're going to be right back here discussing whether we do three-quarter turn or not.
That's right, and that's why I wanted to make it clear that there's somebody concerned about turning the other way.
Okay.
Nobody's even mentioned it.
Okay.
You know, there's no, I mean, it's like I'm there, but nobody knows it, you know?
Okay.
And I just want to make that clear. I'm all for Kum Go. I think it's a great project, and it seems to me that the number one thing in your Plan 2030 is infill. I mean, this is it. They're some of the best in the country at doing it. They've done it 400 times. And everybody loves those stores. I've never been in one until they showed up over there, and it's fantastic. And you're going to have to, I mean, at some point, people are going to take left turns. And what if they go to Dallas or Tulsa? Or on down 62 there? I mean, it's about 270 feet. Seems like plenty of room for somebody to decide whether they want to pull in front of somebody or not. You know? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Who else? See none, I'll bring it back to the council. Okay.
I have a question related
Yes.
to that. In the design process, how is that addressed in designing a median? Is that the state that then considers that?
It is, and it's something that Mr. Brown mentioned that they have already mentioned as a concern, because if this is a full median cut, it would restrict access turning left to the north. I'm not exactly sure the full boundary of the property, if there's also access off of Hill Avenue too, because then that would allow left turns on the hill into the property. So it's something that we have to address at every corner location, and
So it would be the highway department that would design it?
They would not design it, no. The engineers for this development would design a proposal and
then they would have to approve it.
They need to either approve it or not.
But I think also they would need to, we would have some input, I think, on the design also of the median, would we not, Chris, on this? Especially if we wanted to look at the potential problems it might cause the neighbor on the north.
Right. Typically, we would review a development plan before it goes to the highway department for permitting. So that's what I would expect in this case. They would provide the plan to the city for review, and then once we go through that process, it would then go to the highway department.
So would it be possible, do medians sometimes have breaks in them so that you can make a left turn, or does that always require a stacking distance, so this would not work, or?
Well, I think it's something we would just have to look at and see how that would work. Potentially, you could shorten the median on either end, or put a break in it. Putting a break just kind of in the middle of it somewhere, I think really you start having folks bumping heads a little bit. So we'll just have to review all of the options and see what we can come up with.
Okay. What other comments do we have in the council? We have a motion and a second on the resolution. I mean, I really have it.
I'll support the median concept from a conceptual standpoint, as long as these concerns can be worked out. But I have to say, if this comes back to us, if the highway department approves it, I want to be on the record now that I won't support a full turn access in the manner that's been presented. However, I would even personally sponsor a condonation of the median on Royal Oaks to give you full turn access there, if that's an option that you're willing to pursue, because honestly I think that's the best solution that hasn't really been explored yet. I think that satisfies all parties. So just keep that in mind as this proceeds through the highway department.
And that will be for a later date.
Yes.
Anybody else got any comments on this? Okay. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Kenyon?
Yes.
Petty?
Yes.
Tennant?
Yes.
Farrell?
Yes.
Adams?
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Boudreaux.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all. All right, under new business. Number 1, asphalt materials, an ordinance waiving requirements of formal competitive bidding during calendar year 2012 for the purchase of asphalt materials for use by the Transportation Division. Kit?
Whereas the crude oil market continues to experience extreme price volatility, it seems like it always goes up, and whereas this volatility has greatly increased the price of asphalt, making normal competitive bidding procedures unworkable, impractical, and not feasible, and whereas the Transportation Division proposes to solicit bids on a quarterly basis without the need for further approval of the City Council through calendar year 2012. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby finds that such circumstances constitute an exceptional situation where annual competitive bidding is not feasible or practical, and therefore through calendar year 2012 waives the requirements of formal competitive bidding for the purchase of asphalt materials, allowing the Transportation Division to solicit bids on a quarterly basis without the need for further approval of the City Council.
Terry.
Yes, this is just a continuation of what we've done for the last, I think, 3 years, where we will, due to the volatility of the prices, we just go out for quotes on a quarterly basis, then we go on the lowest bidder.
We can't hear you.
We go on the lowest bidder at that point, and then it also gives us the ability to go to the secondary or third bidder. There's been 3 bidders in the past. Right now, we're down to 2. So.
What questions do you have? Anything? Any comments? Okay.
Mayor,
yes.
This is the same deal, Terry, where the volatility of the petroleum market's just changing it?
It's just so we don't get locked into a 1-year contract on it, and if it does go down, we've got the ability to recoup some of that, and it does, for the asphalt companies, they don't want to get locked into a year in case it goes up.
Gotcha.
So in reality, we're actually going to continue to bid, but we're going to bid on a quarterly basis, and they just don't have to prove it, bring it back to you every quarter for approval.
And you don't get tied down.
It's worked very well the last 3 years.
Okay. Anything else for Terry on this? Any public comments on this? See, now I'll bring it back to the council.
We suspend the rules and go to second reading.
We have a motion and a second to go to the second reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Kenyon.
Yes.
Hetty. Tennant.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Boudreaux.
Yes.
An ordinance waiving the requirements of formal competitive bidding during calendar year 2012 for the purchase of asphalt materials for use by the Transportation Division.
I move we suspend the rules and go to third and final reading.
We have a motion and a second to go to the third and final reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Kenyon.
Yes.
Hetty.
Yes.
Tennant.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Boudreaux.
Yes.
An ordinance waiving the requirements of formal competitive bidding during the calendar year 2012 for the purchase of asphalt materials for use by the Transportation Division.
Any final comments from the council? Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Kenyon.
Yes.
Hetty.
Yes.
Tennant.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Boudreaux.
Yes.
Okay, number 2, amend chapter 10 and 150. An ordinance to enact into the Code of Fayetteville 10.18 authority and to amend 150.03 authority in the Unified Development Code. Okay.
Whereas it is prudent to enact into the Code of Fayetteville, including the Unified Development Code, the increased powers granted by the state legislature to Arkansas cities by its recent amendment of Title 14, Chapter 43, Subchapter 6, Powers over Municipal Affairs, which repealed the limitations on municipal authority within the Dillon's Rule. And whereas a new code section should be enacted in Title I, General Provisions of the Fayetteville Code to better identify the statutory and constitutional authority to support the City Council's power to enact the Fayetteville Code. And whereas Section 150.03 authority of the Unified Development Code should be amended to more fully cite the constitutional and statutory authority to support the City Council's power to enact the Unified Development Code of the Code of Fayetteville. Now therefore it be ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby enacts Section 10.18 authority of the Code of Fayetteville as shown below. Section 10.18 authority. The provisions contained within the Code of Fayetteville, including the Unified Development Code, formerly, currently, or hereinafter enacted are based upon, derive authority from, and are enacted pursuant to any and all power and authority conferred upon cities by the Arkansas Constitution and by the Arkansas General Assembly through its statutes, including but not limited to all of Title 14, Local Government of the Arkansas Code, specifically including but not limited to Subchapter 6, Power over Municipal Affairs of Chapter 43, Government of Cities of the First Class, Chapter 54, Powers of Municipalities, Chapter 55, Ordinances of Municipalities, and Chapter 56, Building and Zoning Regulations, Chapter 75, Municipal Sales and Use Taxes of Title 26, Taxation, and Title 3, Alcohol Beverages, and any and all other state statutes or constitutional provisions that provide any authority to the City of Fayetteville to enact ordinances, codes, or regulations within or referenced by the Code of Fayetteville. No specific reference or authority within any code section excludes the general authority of all state law and this section. Section 2, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby amends Section 150.03 Authority of Unified Development Code so that it will now repeat the exact language of the newly enacted Section 10.18 authority shown above. Mr. Mayor, I brought this forward because when the legislature amended the Powers over Municipal Affairs subchapter of our basic chapter that governs first-class cities, this was sometimes known as the Home Rule Statute, and when they amended it, they made a significant increase in the powers of municipalities by repealing what's called the Dillon's Rule. The Dillon's Rule is a rule that basically says that any powers that are not expressly given to the cities or absolutely necessary to carry out their functions are not deemed to be given to the cities. And in fact, if there's any doubt about whether the cities have the power, they do not have that power. So even though the state legislature had many years ago passed something that looked like a statute that gave us a lot of power, in fact, its interpretation by the Supreme Court vastly limited the powers that had been given to the cities. The legislature has the right to give cities power, and they did so in the last legislature by passing a section that specifically revoked the Dillon's Rule's application to that particular statute. The reason I have presented this is that anytime one of your ordinances might be questioned in court, I would like to have the full amount of power possible under all of the Arkansas statutes and the Arkansas Constitution in order to defend your decision. No matter which way it is, I'm going to defend it, even if I might have recommended against it at one point. It doesn't make any difference. I want to defend it and try to make sure that it will survive any challenge. And therefore, I thought it was made sense for us to enact this amendment to these authority sections to make sure that the City of Fayetteville, the City Council of Fayetteville, had as much power as the legislature has allowed you.
Kit, if this had been enacted and signed into law in Fayetteville, when we had the Rogers Group rock quarry deal and they sued us, and your interpretation of the law was that we were within the power granted us as a city, would this have made any difference in what prevailed as far as the court's ruling?
You know, that's very hard to tell. Both myself and the Attorney General of Arkansas felt like we did have the power even without this, but this certainly would have given me another option to argue, and I wish I would have had it to argue in that case, because it would have, I think, given us at least another way to argue that that wasn't the sole power, that the particular statute that we cited. That's another reason I did this, to try to strengthen the code as best we can.
Okay. Anything else? Any other questions for Kit on this?
I would just add that I'm really supportive of it, and I love the idea that the city government, especially since it is such an interactive level of government with individual citizens, where you have individual meetings with citizens and you have really face-to-face interaction with people who vote for you, and much more than at the state level and then at the federal level. And so I think if there's any way that we can give that community more power to make decisions for those people who are really often right here with us making those decisions, then that should happen. So thank you, Kit, for bringing that forward.
Anybody else? Any public comment on this? Oh, I'm sorry. No, okay, you want to wait? All right. Any public comment on this? See, none, I'll bring it back to the council.
Mayor, I would just say, philosophically, I'm a small government man, not a large government man. I certainly wouldn't, I certainly don't want the city to become vulnerable to liability where it doesn't have to, but being philosophically a small government man, I can't support this. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. I will entertain a motion to go to the second reading.
Second.
We have a motion to second to go to the second reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Tennant.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Boudreaux.
Yes.
An ordinance to enact into the Code of Fayetteville, Section 10.18, authority, and to amend Section 150.03, authority in the Unified Development Code.
I think we suspend the rules, go to third and final reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go to the third and final reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Tennant.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Boudreaux.
Yes.
An ordinance to enact into the Code of Fayetteville, Section 10.18, authority, and to amend Section 150.03, authority in the Unified Development Code.
Any final comments from the council? Okay. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Tennant.
Yes.
Farrell.
No.
Adams.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Boudreaux.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you all. Number 3, Washington County Jail Services Interlocal Agreement. Resolution to approve the third amended interlocal agreement for jail services with Washington County to increase the booking fee from $55 to $60 per prisoner. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. Council, this is a resolution to amend the contract we currently have with Washington County to house our jail prisoners. We started that in 2005 when we closed our jail. Last year we paid, in 2011, we paid about $55, but not about, we paid $55 per person. And this proposal is to raise it to $60 per booking. That's about a 9% increase, and the contract allows for it to be a maximum of 10% each year. We started off in 2005 at, I believe it was $40, and it's worked its way up to $60 now. However, between 2005 and now, it has stayed the same several times. It's went up several times and stayed the same several times during that time period. You have to try to answer any questions you have.
What questions do we have for the chief on this?
Just have one question.
Sure.
I thought we had a really good discussion at the agenda session about this. One of the things that was mentioned was when this contract was first entered into, the cost per day to book prisoners, I think, was $62.50.
I believe that's what the sheriff said. That's a per day, what it costs them per day.
Right. That was in response to the question I asked why the increase 9.6% was higher than inflation, which I felt was a fine answer. I was wondering why the contract was agreed to if the cost at $45 a day if the cost was so much higher.
You mean back when it was started?
Right.
Well, I'm not sure their cost was that high back whenever it started. I don't know what their cost was in 2005. Is that what you're asking, Mike?
Yeah, I think that's what we were told, was that the costs back then were even still above $60 a day, so we've just been raising it periodically to meet that.
I think that's correct. I think that you know, the sheriff gave a lot of good examples of how we work together with different things. The firing range, they transport our prisoners up to a facility where the judge can see them, where we don't have to type an officer doing that. And I think all those things have just contributed to that increase in cost.
Okay. Well, I do think this is a good deal. I did want you to re-explain one thing at the end of the agenda session. You talked about how you had looked into doing some of the booking ourselves, and even since then, even people who have watched the video have a couple extra questions, so I was just wondering if you could explain that again.
Okay, I'll try to do that.
I think that we've always thought at some point, if the county ever decided to go to a per day rate, that we could book some of our own prisoners that we were just going to book in and let go at our facility somewhere. When we got to looking into that, we decided pretty quickly that that was not possible. We talked to what's called jail standards in Arkansas, and basically what we would have to have is what would be called a 24-hour or overnight facility. And to have that facility, basically you're building a mini jail. You have to have a sally port, you have to have male and female cells that are separated by sight and sound. There were a few exemptions. You did not have to have a day room, an exercise room, and a few others. But other than that, basically you had to be building a jail.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, I've got one question. We do have power under the Arkansas Rules of Criminal Procedure to be able to cite out most misdemeanors or people we suspect of committing misdemeanors without booking them in. Is that not correct?
That's correct. It's my understanding that you only have to book in Class A misdemeanors, and that is so you can take their photograph and fingerprints. Back in 2004, our last full year of the jail, we booked in over 10,000 people. So you can see we have drastically cut the number of people that we're actually booking into the jail, and we're doing that by issuing a lot of people just a citation, ones that we were allowed to.
Thank you.
I don't think 5% is a bad jump for doing this, and I'll support that. I would just encourage all the people listening and councilmen to visit with their JPs when you get a chance, because the way I understand it, and I understand Fayetteville has the vast majority of the bookings in this county, but my understanding is we're the only ones that pay.
That's correct.
So I think that's something that would be interesting for you to visit with your JPs about. Thank you, Chief. I'll support this.
Okay. Any public comment on this?
Well,
seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. Yes, Ron.
Well, speaking to that, I thought the sheriff made a good explanation the other night at agenda session about why we're paying and they're not, and I think it might be worth it to hear that again. If that would be okay, because you did explain that, and I think it would be nice to hear that again.
Good evening, Sheriff.
Mayor, members of the council. Sorry for being late. I was at another meeting, but tried to get here as quickly as I could. I suppose it boils down to we have always been the jail for the small towns. None of the small towns have ever had their own facility to hold prisoners. And I think it's just in keeping with tradition and what we've always provided that service for them. Whereas Fayetteville always had a jail and decided at some point, well, it was in 04, and then when the discussions began in 05, when they determined that they did want to, in fact, close their jail, that we entered into this contract. We had determined early on that our biggest impact was going to be in the booking area, and that's why we entered into a one-time, what we called a book-in fee, to help us with that impact. Greg has done a wonderful job of reducing those numbers. You heard him explain that prior to the closing of the jail, they were booking in over 10,000. We worked together to try and figure out a way to bring those numbers down on our part, because we just couldn't physically handle 10,000 people coming through that portion of our facility. And of course, he was thinking budgetary wise what they could do to trim the costs down. So that may have been the long way around your question.
Thank you.
But I hope that answered that.
Say good, Rhonda.
That's good. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for the sheriff? Thank you. Sheriff.
One more question.
Yes, certainly.
Are any of the JPs here tonight? Okay.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else?
I'd just say one thing, Mayor. I certainly understand tradition and can appreciate it, but we're talking dollars and cents here, so I just didn't like that. Thanks.
Mayor, if I could just make one comment on the numbers. Just the chief said the agenda, but I think it's important for the public to know that when we ran a jail in 2005, the last year, I believe, chief, was approximately $660,000. That's without inflation from 05 to 2012. And our average stay varies depending on the individual from 1.7 days up to 7 days. And if you took our 4,100 roughly 2011 numbers, you can see if you multiply those either by 1.7 and then 60, so a per day rate, or by 7, then 60, you're talking about $1 million versus 250,000. So we might not like it that it's not spread, but the reality of it is this is an excellent budget decision to have this contract in place.
Okay, I need a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second to pass the resolution. Any final comments from council? Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Kenyon?
Yes.
Hetty?
Yes.
Tennant?
Yes.
Farrell?
Yes.
Adams?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Gray? Yes. Boudreaux?
Yes.
Okay. Number 4. Amend Telecommunications Board. An ordinance amending Article 9, Telecommunications Board of the Code of Fayetteville by redefining the procedures and duties of the Telecommunications Board. Kevin.
Whereas under the terms and conditions of cable television franchise agreement, the city is given, among other responsibilities, the duty to regulate cable television channels for public access, educational, and government PEG programming. And whereas the use of public rights-of-way in the city of Fayetteville includes other telecommunications services as well as cable television services. And whereas the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas desires to redefine the scope of the current Telecommunications Board to serve in an advisory capacity regarding telecommunication issues, to promote the use of public information media, and to serve as a coordinating body for issues related to the provision of different telecommunication services. Now therefore it be ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that Section 33.25 through 33.211 Telecommunications Board is hereby repealed and Exhibit A attached hereto and made a part hereof is enacted in its stead.
Okay. Leslie?
Thank you. As City Attorney Williams says, this is dealing with one of your advisory boards, the Telecommunication Board, and it seeks to clarify the roles and duties of the board and essentially roll together the city attorney opinions that you have in your packet that go back since 2006. And so all the city attorney opinions are in there. Essentially, the roles and duties have been debated by the board since that time. In the past, about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, there's been even more of a discussion on, was that too close? Even more of a discussion on the roles. So we asked City Attorney Williams if he would come in and speak and help clarify. 2 other times we had Jason Kelly come in and he helped clarify the roles. We instituted an orientation which essentially said, here's the ordinance, existing ordinance, and here are the city attorney opinions, how you interpret the ordinance. But on September 15th, the Telecommunication Board itself decided to put together an ordinance review committee. They got together, this committee got together and they had 2 meetings where they did a draft for review of the full Telecommunication Board. So the committee brought it back to the board reviewed the recommended changes that their committee had made, and the board voted to have it reviewed by the city attorney. So on that review was on October 20th. It was sent to the city attorney for review and comments. The city attorney made additional comments, recommended changes on both November 23rd and December 1st. I have in your packet also, in your memorandum, you not only have the existing ordinance as it would be, you also have, the existing ordinance, you have the new ordinance as it would be, but in the middle of them you have a strike copy where what is being taken out is struck through, and then what is added is underlined in bold, so you'll see clearly what we're talking about. I've also in the memorandum outlined, here's what was added, here's what was not added, and then just tweaking of words. On December 15th, the ordinance as revised by the Telecommunication Board Committee, working in conjunction with the City Attorney's Office, submitted back to the Telecommunication Board those changes. The full Telecommunication Board again reviewed it at that point, and on a 5-1 vote, decided to send it to you as a City Council and ask for your approval.
Okay, what questions do we have for Lindsley on this? Okay.
I'd just like to comment that I think the striking out and helping us with that was very helpful with reading, and I appreciate
Oh,
that.
good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Second that.
Okay.
Very
Now
helpful.
let's take some public comment and address the chair, please. And everybody gets one turn to the microphone, unless an alderman brings you back up for questions. Okay, introduce yourself, please.
Okay, good evening. I'm Marvin Hilton, and I've lived in Fayetteville for 20 years at 689 Windball Lane. And I think telecommunications is becoming more important for efficiency, effectiveness, and transparency in government here in Fayetteville. And that's why we need to retain a broad view in our telecommunications ordinance. In the year 2000, the cable board was changed to a telecommunications board in order to keep up with advancing technology. And then again, in 2003, the scope of the board was once again broadened to once again keep up with advancing technology. Now, most of the changes that we're talking about doing tonight, I think, are good changes to clarify. So most of them are good. But there are 3 changes on the proposed changes tonight to remove the emphasis of a broad scope that was added in 2003. These 3 changes are, very briefly, to remove the broad definition of telecommunications infrastructure. And the second one is to remove from the duties to recommend funding for the development and maintenance of the city's telecommunications infrastructure. And the third one is to remove from the duties to identify telecommunication needs and solutions in the city and define innovative approaches to the use of expanding digital capacity. Now, I think in a world and in a town like Fayetteville where you can use a small device like this in your pocket to communicate with almost anybody, anywhere, anytime, I think to emphasize only television in our telecommunications ordinance is too narrow and too limiting. I think that's why we need to retain the broad scope to encourage telecom board members and maybe sometimes members of the public to come up with innovative ideas about efficiency, effectiveness, and transparency in government. And I think there are 2 obvious examples that we could probably do now or in the very near future. One of those examples is, for instance, government access is now web streamed to the World Wide Web. Public access is not. I think we need to equalize that. I think the citizens need to have the privilege of their programs being web streamed to the world too, just as well as government meetings. The other example is the city staff can watch quite a number of meetings, I understand, from 2 or 3 of the meeting rooms here in City Hall. They can watch them live on their computers because they're streamed to the city's network. There again, I believe we could equalize that by enabling citizens to do the same thing on their computers and watch these meetings that are streamed live from several of these meeting rooms so that they could watch them in their homes live on their own computers. And these are the kinds of things that would encourage transparency and citizen participation. And that's why we need to retain, I think, a broad perspective of the Telecommunications Board, the one that we put in there in 2003. So do that so that innovative advances in efficiency, effectiveness, transparency, so that those things will more likely happen. Any questions?
Have any questions for Marvin?
I do.
Yes.
You said city staff can watch live, but citizens can't. And I was out of town a couple weeks ago, and I watched meetings live from another state. Could you explain a little bit about what you were saying there?
Okay, what I meant was, for instance, in room 326, when those videos of those meetings are recorded, I think most of the time they're streamed to the city employee and city staff members' computers. They can watch them in their offices if they wish. But those do not go out to the citizens. Does that clarify?
Is that correct? Yeah, I'd like to know if that's true, because I've definitely
We
watched
may
movies that were live. I mean,
Fritz or
watched
someone here,
meetings,
but to my
movies that-
knowledge, the streaming that we have accessible on the city computers is the streaming that would be taking place on this city's website at that time. That we don't get streaming directly that is not going out through the feed. We can watch a meeting, as many of us do, either by, in some locations we actually have the access to the cable channels. In other locations we watch it through our computers. But Lindsay, do you know?
Actually, I asked the channel manager today that very question.
Yeah, I'm not challenging your comment. I don't know. I just.
Yeah, and I just was curious.
Yeah.
These rooms stream live, so when they're streaming from 219, we can see it setting upstairs. We will do it, but also the public can see it at the same time that it is streaming.
And let me note, this doesn't have anything to do with the ordinance before you tonight, but as the side note on this, I'm a communication director. Maybe Fritz knows more than I do, but I don't know that I can watch in my office here in City Hall what I can watch at home. I can't watch at home what I can't, and I don't know anything different. And I will say, just because it's been thrown out there, we're going to surprise it with the Telecom board, but as of yesterday, I did approve for public access streaming on that, just so we clarify that. The fact behind that is public access was streaming for a long time. A nice citizen had donated money. The grant had run out, and it's because the grant ran out, we needed at least a month, we needed a little time to find alternatives, and we were able to find a free option. And so we thought that would be good financially and really good for the citizens.
Thank you.
Could I just clarify?
Marvin, I'm going to give you a little leeway this time, but would you already stop with your comments and then you ask for questions? But go ahead. Okay,
well, all I was going to say is that Fritz Giesler, the manager of the government channel, told me today that they could stream to the city's network from room 326, 219, and they were planning to do that from room 111. So you can see meetings in your employees' offices that you could not see at home.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
What other public comment do we have?
Try to speak briefly. My name is Blake Pennington. I'm the chairman of the Telecommunications Board. I appreciate y'all taking this up. I also sat on the Ordinance Review Committee that took a look at the Telecommunications Board ordinance and suggested these changes to the full board, which were then suggested to y'all. The common theme in all of our discussions was clarity. We just wanted to simplify it, make it clear to the Telecommunications Board and clear to the public what our role was. There were 3 goals that came out of our meetings. First was to move away from vagueness and towards specificity. Number 2 was to move away from broad mandates that were unrealistic and to move toward responsibilities that were realistic and measurable. And finally, was to clarify the board's role in city government. For example, we removed the word oversee in favor of regularly review. We don't view it as our responsibility to micromanage the government channel or CAT. They're professionals who've been hired to do that job and they do it well. So, you have given us the charge to review their progress, contract compliance, and we want to make that clear to the board and to the public. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I just want to clarify one point for the public watching. The committee that Mr. Pennington is referring to is a subcommittee of the Telecom Board, not the ordinance review. Since the council has an ordinance review committee, I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, I want to go through the process one more time. When the Telecommunications Board, then the subcommittee that you all studied the ordinance, correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Then back to the city attorney who looked at it, back to the Telecommunications Board, and then it was passed 5-1. Is that correct statement?
Actually, it was the subcommittee was appointed to review it, and then to the board, and then to Mr. Williams.
And then back to the board.
Then back to the board again. Okay.
I apologize for the confusion.
No. I was just trying to get that all straight in my head. Okay.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
I just want to make a comment, Mr. Pennington. First, I want to thank you for your service and serving the city. And second, when you, the vagueness, listing responsibility, and talking about non-management, I think that you were well focused on what the charges were. Because in the past, that hasn't been the case. So thank you for your time, and thank you for working on that.
Question?
Yes, thank you.
I echo what Alderman Farrell said. Probably in the past 2 years, there's probably been no one as critical of the Telecommunications Board as I have, and so I tell you, I really do appreciate what your intentions were here and what you've come up with. I do have a question though. The clause 33.210B6, which is on page 12 of 24 of our packet, it's struck out. It says, identify telecommunications needs and solutions in the city and define innovative approaches to the use of expanding digital capacity. And I was wondering if you could explain a little bit the particular rationale behind eliminating that, and if you still had a process for identifying perhaps not novel solutions that the city may find useful, or if that was something that the board felt they still wanted to do.
We really wanted to get away from that. There are these, broad mandates like identify telecommunications needs. The city just did the technology audit. That's not our role. We didn't see it as our role. And with a part-time volunteer advisory committee, sure, if we see something that comes along and we find that it falls within our purview, we'd be glad to recommend it. But we just thought it was a little too much, and that we've got enough of a responsibility, just facilitating what goes on at the television center.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Yes.
And I appreciate also the opening as far as this being an advisory committee, and I do think it's really important to define roles, and I do have, Blake, if you can speak to the concern that because I was here, I did get a lot of concerns about this, so I just want to try to address some of it. Is the recommending funding, was that a role that was there before?
It was in the ordinance. It was not a duty that we ever fulfilled. Since I've been on the board, we've never had anything to do with the funding, apart from, we would review contracts. We'd review the government center contract, or I'm sorry, the public access contract and the franchise agreements, but we had no role in any funding issues with those.
Okay, so really the action would have been just giving recommendations regarding contracts. So does that stay in place then? Would that activity continue?
Oh yes, we would still review the contracts that came under the telecommunications
and give
role.
Ideas about
Sure.
how to improve it. So. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Pennington? Thank you.
Thank you.
Who would be next?
Mayor, I don't know if I have standing, literally, to be here tonight. I'm a resident of Benton County now, and you have all received my letters. I wanted you to really think carefully back to two younger, older...
Jim, you need to identify yourself.
Pardon me?
You need to identify yourself.
Jim Bemis from Benton County, formerly from here for 20 years and a former member of the Telecom Board, and a very, very concerned citizen in what I think you may be losing In 2003, then Alderman Jordan and Mark led a committee that did a very thorough study of the telecommunications needs in town. We had 12 or 14 people, including John Lewis and Larry Long, some of the people that have been the leaders in this town for years. We've lost a lot of those people who were pushing on this media from the outside. I'd call it from the business community. They weren't coming at from the government angle. I think it's time that you brought the university together. They were very well represented. Susan Norton was a leader along with John, and has been for the past 20 years. She's doing a superb job in the school system. What do you gain by taking away the telecommunications infrastructure as one of your oversight roles? Who is going to do that now, and who is going to develop a longer-term strategy, if not the Telecom Board? I'm not convinced that the Telecom Board, as it's now constituted, is the way to go. There are other ways that would involve, number one, the council more. There are other ways to constitute the board itself, similar to the Advertising Promotion Committee. Yeah, there are other models that you can use, but the model that you use, please make sure that you retain your status as the only city in this part of the world, really, certainly in Arkansas, that has something like we have here in Fayetteville. It's a real feather in this city's cap that you have led in that area. You folks don't really realize what it's like to come to this meeting room and enjoy what you have here until you leave it. I've lived overseas. I've tried to see what they call democracies over there. I've lived in other counties. They don't have what Fayetteville has. They don't have you all. So all I ask you, please take a very squint-eyed look at what the ordinance will leave you with, and whether that's what you want for the future in, so let's say 2020. What do you have a plan for that? Do you have a budget? Do you have an organizational chart? I'm not going to burden you, but one thing that you really need to take into account is that in many other states, they're moving the discretion for this sort of operation, the PEG channels, to the state level. You won't have any say-so over it. That's happened in I believe, Mr. Farrell, you'd know something about that, what's going on in some of the other folks. We have a man on the Telecom Board now who understands what's going on in the other states and how they've lost control at the community level. That's a very real danger, and there's absolutely no reason why, if they move that direction, the fees would be collected by the city. That sort of thing is what's going on in other states. Think about what it would mean to lose. You're going to have about $1 million coming in, very close to it, from Cox and AT&T this year. That doesn't have to be, number one, AT&T doesn't have to pay it now. The way the law's written, the way I understand it, they did that to get the foot in the door, and they've done a good job. Not arguing against AT&T, nor Cox. But they are lobbying in Washington to have those kinds of activities done at the community level, done at the state level. I ask you to take a real hard look at it. I think you ought to go back to another ad hoc subcommittee for telecommunications and see what that really means. You've taken that definition out of the ordinance. What does it mean now if you don't have it in that ordinance? What does telecommunications mean to the community? I'm going to leave you with that, but thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah,
yes, Mark.
Jim, I think that all of us actually support your intent. I mean, I certainly do, but I can't understand really this revision that one section on infrastructure, taking it out, doesn't restrict, it doesn't look like to me, that maybe I'm incorrect, anything, because it still says the purpose and intent of this committee, if you read about that, is to advise the city council on telecommunications issues. So is that not broad enough? Rather, to me,
you're saying that it needs to be broad and we need to protect all telecommunications. If you define in infrastructure specific telecommunications, then to me that's more restrictive than taking it out and leaving it in the broad definition of the purpose and intent of the committee. Help me understand the disconnect there.
Well, what you're talking about is what we discussed in 2003 and in 2000.
And
we went through exactly that exercise.
Right.
What do we really mean when we talk about telecommunications infrastructure? And man, can you all remember what it was like in 2000? We were on telephone modems. This town has turned completely around. The word telecommunications didn't have any meaning back then. What will it have 10 years from now? I'm just saying, look at it as a council, examine it like you do the streets, parks. Look at it item by item, look at that ordinance and say to yourself, what does it mean? I don't know what it'll mean to you. One of the beauties of the way it was written originally is that the communities could do anything they wanted to with that bandwidth. I think Mr. Williams has told us in the past that the community can pretty much say forget it, take one part of the channels or not, and that's the way it is in the rest of the counties in the state. They just take the money and run. Counties too. Anyhow, I don't know if that answered your question, but it's those questions that were asked in 2000, and those same questions were asked in 2003.
Well, I do think that is answering the question, and to beg, I think that the question is answered in the purpose and the intent the way that this is revised. That's where, I mean, I support totally everything that you're saying, and I don't see that striking out a restrictive definition does not actually promote a broader opportunity for this committee by the way it's currently written. See what I'm saying? Because this is what's being taken out is a restrictive vision of what telecommunications is today. But we're looking forward, as you did in the original notes of the original committee meetings that y'all had, to have a broad definition of telecommunications. Well, the way that this is written in the revision, we can still have that broad definition of telecommunications, without having the restrictive language that's in the section 4, I believe this is, that is being removed.
Definition.
The definition. So that's, I guess the way I'm looking at this is I don't think anyone here wants to restrict any activity. We want to make it broad. And by taking this telecommunications infrastructure that has a specific definition out, then it allows this committee or any subcommittee that they develop or any concern that they have to be an advisory committee to the city council. And I understand that we had a lot of broad discussions on this in the past, and that led to a lot of conflict in the past. And maybe this worked by having this strict definition in to get the committee back on track. But looking at the information that I've received from my constituents, including Marvin, I do have the concern, but I don't see that taking this section 4 out is actually the problem here, because that is more restrictive than the general language that's used in the original, in the top of the document that talks about the purpose and the intent of this board. So if indeed you see how I vote on this, or how I may vote, it's not that I'm wanting to restrict anything, it's because I want to actually support a broader definition of telecommunications. So
if you're still asking, I'm not really, I don't intend to try to answer your question tonight, because it will take the kind of committee that they set up in 2003 to answer. What you have is a ordinance that restricts most of the board's duties to television. Okay. And that's what you're left with. And I think that's what was said tonight.
Okay. Thanks. I think I hear where you're coming from.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who else?
Aubrey Shepherd again. I've been on that Telecom board the past 4 years from the beginning of 2008, and enjoyed a lot of it, a great deal of it. Some nights more than I wanted to, sort of like being on the council. But anyway, I also appreciated the channels, and I still do. There was most of the time that I was on the board, I actually got a second TV so I could have government channel and cable access on at the same time. And okay, I'm the only addict that's ever done that in town, I'm sure, and I did it for a long time, recorded a lot of them until I broke the recorder. And anyway, it's extremely important that every detail, every meeting, even subcommittees, every little thing that goes on. I'm not saying that Don ought to have a recorder in his office blasting it out to the public, but there shouldn't be many secrets going on. Decisions are made at subcommittee meetings, and they go in and boards pass them just like that. Staff members make decisions, boards pass them just like that. So I have to agree with Jim. I will say this, I was the only member of the Telecom board who did not vote to send this forward. I agree with Jim that if there is to be any change in this ordinance, you can start with the old version that Don and Lionel helped write in 2003, and Kid, I assume, was with them, and I can't remember who all. But anyway, start with that, look at the previous one from that, look at the one that is proposed tonight, and have a committee involving the current council members actually do that rewrite. Because it's not the province of the Telecom board who did not write this. This was primarily a staff written revision, and the Telecom board spent maybe a 2-hour meeting and a 1-hour meeting in those and a 15-minute or 30-minute meeting in that second meeting. I was there, but I did not have myself serving on the committee at that time. I was chairman until August this year. Now, so I voted against it, and I think that any revisions should involve people from the council in the actual writing and studying the differences. And I could not, as many hours as we worked in previous years on revising the policies and procedures, we never even dreamed of rewriting the ordinance. And so that is clearly the council's prerogative to do. And you take advice from everybody you can get, not just this board or staff members involved or something, but I suggest you look very closely that you don't weaken the public's right to know, and that Mr. Hilton was talking about streaming. I believe it is quite possible to have these meetings, all meetings in the building, down to the technical plat review and all those things can be streamed live. Because notice the newspaper, there's no one left from the newspaper here. They have to go. They no longer have the 1:30 deadline that we worked under 10 years ago before I got freedom to come to these meetings regularly because I had to be there copy editing. So we were trying to get the complete story. Government channel is where you get the complete story now. We're doing the newspaper's job. TV guys were here. They didn't stay for everything. They've got deadlines to meet. They now print the paper 3 hours earlier than they used to that you get here. The main thing is to get it on your door by 6 a.m. with fewer employees doing the writing, the editing, and even delivery, and satisfy the people who are still buying the newspaper. But government channel in the past did a great job and still can. But we've got to stop thinking in terms of decreasing government channel's ability to serve the public. And it's up to all of you to defend the public's right to know. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, who else wants to comment on this?
you very much, Mayor Jordan, members of council. My name's Stephen Smith. I'm a member of the Telecommunication Board. I had not intended to speak tonight, and I apologize for doing so, both for taking your time and for ever speaking anytime Arkansas and Kentucky are playing. But I felt I had to respond to a few things that were said tonight that just weren't true. City staff didn't write these changes. Our committee did, and the board did, and we worked with the city attorney. It doesn't reduce transparency. It has nothing to do with which meetings are covered. It has nothing to do with Freedom of Information Act. It has to do with the duties of the board and to do it more clearly. Now, the original definition included advising you on such things as satellites, cell phones, things over which cities have absolutely no authority to do anything. And it's, the board's been dysfunctional for a couple of years. It has not done its duty. It's had lots of meetings. It's had lots of talking. It has not fulfilled its duty under the ordinance to advise the city council with annual and quarterly reports. And part of that's because the board took on all these duties that had nothing to do with the ordinance. You'll recall that last year, Mr. Hilton testified that the telecommunication board had to work so much they should be paid half as much as city council members. If we do our duty and advise the council on things that matter and that we have some control over, we don't need to be paid. We don't need to take up, among our duties, the study of parking, which was suggested by Mr. Hilton at our last meeting. We need to focus on the communication problems in the city and things that we can deal with. We don't need to run the city's IT assessment. We don't need to come in and work on your phone and your computers, but we need to advise on this. Now, Mr. Bemis says, we've got this wonderful ordinance. It's the crown jewel of the universe. Fayetteville will still have the only 3-peg channels in the state of Arkansas. It'll just have an ordinance now that allows us to do our duties. I hope that responds to the questions that were raised. I'll be glad to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Smith. All right, who else wants to comment on this? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the council. What y'all want to do? All right.
I just have one brief question for staff. Part of the IT assessment was to establish a governance process, something that we haven't really had before. I was wondering where we were at that point and what role we see the communications department and the telecommunications board playing in that, whenever it happens.
The IT governance process, we have our first organizational meeting with Plant Moran on February the 2nd. It's been scheduled with the key division, department management staff, IT communications. We've yet to select which one of you we'd like to have participate in that, but our plan is to have one of you do that upcoming. Where we will bring this up as a topic about how we wish to address some of those questions. I think, one of the key things that this, and I appreciate the compliment that Jim and people have given when Lionel and I were on the council and we took this on as a subcommittee. But just to remind everybody, one of the reasons we chose to do it is there was a fight a week. People lined out the door, problems with items, and questions over words. What did certain words mean, and what should they look at? And we were both, and continue to be, my boss is, I don't think I've ever worked for a person who's been more open and transparent with the people, every person, than Mayor Jordan has been. And because that's his direction to me, that's my direction to the staff as the chief of staff. Our staff did not rewrite this revision. It was not on our radar as a work plan. It was a subcommittee generated by the telecommunications. We certainly have opinions when they have these discussions. And I believe that as I was going through the markup of this myself, I think that they were successful in hitting some of the confusing words like oversee, because some of our past board members have determined oversight to be as strong as staff oversight. And I think we have paid staff to do that. We don't have volunteer citizens to do that. That's not the role of our boards and commissions. And I think that that was a clear, distinctive difference that needed to be made. I don't think it limited it at all, because the very first question the Mayor Jordan asked me is, does it keep them from talking about anything? And I took the response, the exact response that Alderman Kenyon just said. It says telecommunications, which is anything that you want to deem to it. In fact, the wording, even though below there's some directive that is much more television-based or IP provider-based, there are two areas that I read to be broad, and one was that it said telecommunication infrastructure issues including but not limited to, which left it to still be addressed in areas beyond what was listed. It also talked about renewal of any franchise agreement, which could be brought at any time for any item that was brought forward and any new technology developments that come forward. So it didn't limit it to just franchise holders of IP or just franchise holders of television. It could be any future franchise dialogue. I do think that staff has a role, that we support committees, and it is our job to try to provide staff resources for those committees when necessary. But we're also very clear at what our role is as a staff member and the roles that we don't think that volunteer citizen committees should be in. We don't let them sit on staffing selection committees typically. They don't sit on vendor selection committees unless we're directed by you at the council to do so. We see those as staff functions. They don't design our budget. They give input into our budget process. They might recommend to the council that we need a technology assessment, but they wouldn't make the selection, negotiate the contract, things of that nature. And while we seek their input on those things, just because they might give us a piece of information doesn't mean that we are automatically going to include it. We try always to give advice to the council if we are not taking a recommendation from the board forward to you in our own recommendation. And I believe that that was a great committee at the time, but I also believe it was 6 years ago. And I can tell you that just like today we're talking about it, I can remember Jim throwing out a term, and I don't even know if it's in that definition or not, but he threw out a term that I had no idea what it was when I was on. It was terrestrial something. In fact, I think it made it in there just because I didn't know what the heck it was, and thought if they want to give us advice on it, they can give us advice on it. But I do think it's the more you list things, the more limited you make an ordinance. You know, Matthew asked me the time I told you how to build a clock. The ordinance was, from our purpose, the reason we're recommending what the committee forwarded was because we didn't feel that it restricted their ability to give advice. We felt it took away the confusion that we hear in board members in the past that they have a management right. We don't believe they have a management right as staff. We believe they have an advisory right as a committee member. And we think that because of the focus of the council on technology, timekeeping systems, Granicus, we're looking at digital agenda routing, all kinds of things to save us time and money. We make our decisions on staffing as it relates to these policies on the budget you approve for us, the CIP dollars that we have, your goals in terms of staffing reductions. And some of those things are not things we take to the Telecom because they're not pertinent, even though they might be a technology-related item. We don't ask them about our timekeeping system for employees, even though it's a technology-related item. Doesn't mean they couldn't give us advice on it if they chose to do so. But I do want to make clear is there is never an intention, at least of any staff member that the mayor has put in charge of something, to limit the public's participation, input, accessibility. I think we strive every day to try to do that. And our IT governance process will have a mechanism that if the Telecom board sees a technology that they believe that we should be evaluating, it will go through the process this ordinance is done, which is to you, and then based on your decision, on to the us to study from a governance perspective to then bring back to you whether you want to contract and do it. But February the 2nd is the first meeting on that governance process.
Okay. Justin.
Well, I have sat on that board before, and I can tell you that even though sometimes it was a little frustrating because it seemed like we did talk a lot, and but I can tell you a few things struck me. One was city staff always went, in my opinion, above and beyond in reacting to the questions and the sometimes assertions, and sometimes it was defending itself in doing things that were asked of it. So I also think Fritz Giesler, who is not here, but I think he does a tremendous job. And I felt sometimes in those meetings, and I think Blake made this point, that those are paid professionals and they do a good job. I did always enjoy being on that board, seeing the reports from the CAT director, seeing the reports from Fritz, seeing the reports that came through, because those are really important issues. And I think that definition is really good here. I think the more structure we can get on that board, the better it will become. I'm confident in what's happening now. If you watch the meetings now, I think they're going very smoothly. I think the talking is more to the point. We're not using city staff overtime for meetings that are running long. And I don't think that the board's importance is diminished by this. I agree with what Alderman Kenyon said. I think it actually doesn't do anything but enhance it. So if the chairperson of the board is in agreement with this, which it looks like most of them are, then I think it's a good thing.
All right. Sarah.
Well, I appreciate the time that staff put into talking with me about this as well, and I know that I had received comments from those of you here, but also from other Ward 4 members that were questioning, and really there seems to be a perception, kind of a fear of limiting access, and in reading the language in the proposed ordinance, to me it's completely the opposite. I would say actually it creates freedom of really looking at different issues. And actually, if you look at number 6 where it said identifying telecommunications needs and solutions, the thing that was a concern about eliminating, and I understand that there is a desire to be able to make suggestions to the staff and make suggestions that would be good ideas, and maybe you've learned about something. But right underneath it, number 7 is promote public awareness of telecommunications policy issues. It allows that very same thing. It says, hey everybody, because this is a public committee, hey everybody, this would be a good idea, let's do this. And as the chair of an advisory committee to the council, which I would call has been very effective. We've been very clear that our role is only advisory, and we try very hard if we're doing an education program or if we're doing any sort of understanding that it has to be related to how it will inform the council either through public awareness or through direct advisory role. And that's really what these committees are. They're appointed by the council to help inform the council. And but it's not as having like jobs because it's volunteers and they have other lives and they can't be expected to have an assignment, so to speak. They can choose. There can be options there that if they want to do something, that's fine. But I think this actually opens up those former limitations that I would say were listed in there. And I'm really very glad that there is some structure, there's structure in leadership. And I think, Blake, I'm just hearing really good things about your leadership there. And so thank you, one, for those of you that did have concerns, because it did help me pay extra attention, and I think it's an important conversation to have. And two, it helped me learn that there are some really good things going on here And the opportunities to contribute and give ideas are still there based on the language that's in this. So.
One more quick thing. Something I meant to say, if that's okay.
Okay, and then Ross.
Okay, sorry. One thing that also struck me when I was on the board is that board was not only sitting on the board, but also in the audience full of what I would call watchdogs. And I do very much appreciate those people who watch what's going on and bring things forward. And I don't want to diminish that by any stretch of the imagination. So to the Aubreys and Jims and Marvins and Blakes of the world, keep an eye out. And I appreciate it very much.
Well, I just wanted to quickly say that as a member of the nominating committee with 3 other wonderful aldermen here, a lot of times citizens ask, what is the role of this committee? What do we do there? And we read something to them. I mean, they've applied for it because they thought it was interesting, but they want to know more. So I very much appreciate the effort that's been put in to clarifying what this committee does and making it very clear to citizens. I think it can only be good for those of us who select citizens, for the council to vote on, and for those who are interested in positions to have very clear goals and definitions of what their role is. So thank you.
Anybody else? Paul?
Yeah, Mayor, first, I guess I'd like to say I always appreciate when we have citizens that volunteer, especially when they try to take ownership of something and do the best that they can, but I think sometimes that can be carried too far. I very much appreciated what Mr. Pennington and what Mr. Smith said back there. In a few less words than Mr. Marr used a while ago, my observation in about 7 years has been that I think that you can revise this bill till hell freezes over. But if you don't establish up front and receive recognition from all committee members that they are advisory capacity only, not policymakers, then this problem will resurge because it's a core of the same people that have caused this whole thing over and over. But I must say I feel a little bit optimistic after hearing the new chair. I even think that moving forward, perhaps a better name might be Telecom Committee rather than Telecom Board, which I might try to bring that forward. But reading through this, I'm in agreement of the same things that were pointed out, Alderman Kenyon pointed out, but there has to be a recognition, and it hasn't happened yet. There are still some people that think that they're policymakers, and they are not policymakers, as none of the people sitting on appointed boards and commissions are. They have an advisory capacity to this council. If they want to do that, I welcome them to run for the city council, to come up here and set policy. Amen. Thank you.
Anybody else? Now, we are on the first reading.
We go to the second reading.
Second. We have a motion and a second to go to the second reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Kenyon?
Yes.
Petty?
Yes.
Tennant?
Yes.
Farrell?
Yes.
Adams?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Boudreaux?
Yes.
An ordinance amending Article 9, Telecommunications Board of the Code of Fayetteville by redefining the procedures and duties of the Telecommunications Board.
I'd move we suspend the rules and go to the
Second.
third and final.
We have a motion and a second to go to the third and final reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Kenyon?
Yes.
Petty?
Yes.
Tennant?
Yes.
Farrell?
Yes.
Adams?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Boudreaux?
Yes.
An ordinance amending Article 9, Telecommunications Board of the Code of Fayetteville by redefining the procedures and duties of the Telecommunications Board.
Any final comments from the council? Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Kenyon?
Yes.
Petty?
Yes.
Tennant?
Yes.
Farrell?
Yes.
Adams?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Boudreaux?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you all. Is there any announcements tonight?
Ward 4 meeting, no,
Not next week.
not next week, but the week after that.
Which, what date?
So the 30th.
Thank
Last
you.
Monday night.
Yeah.
Where is it?
111, room 111 at 7 p.m. Monday the 30th.
Okay. Anything else? Any announcements from the staff?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you all. We're adjourned.